Hi friends, this is Suns fan sounding absolutely horrible, and joining me is Cinderin. How are you, good sir?
I'm good. I like sounding better than you.
I know, so
Makes me
I,
feel
I need to
comfortable.
preface this entire update, which is the 6.81 patch update video, with this is the reason I can't take one day off, is because when I do, a huge patch, I guess it's not technically out yet, but the notes are, which is really what matters for my position. So I had to go buy a microphone at Best Buy and hook it up to my laptop. So that's why I sound like I'm in a tin can. So I do apologize to everybody watching and to Syndrin who has to put up with this.
I'm good. I don't mind too much.
Okay, cool. So let's get started because God knows how long this is actually going to take, and it is 4 a.m. for me. So yeah, so let's do it. So first and foremost, have you read these notes?
Yes.
Okay, because I skimmed them. I had to look at them on my phone on the way from the airport. So I haven't gotten a good deep look, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So as far as the general updates, Roshan's base armor increased by 1. I guess it's not a
He's
huge
literally
deal.
unkillable now.
Yeah, he's literally unkillable. I think that's mostly just for the level 1 Rosh, I guess. I mean, honestly, I thought that not to get on a tangent here, but I thought that they were going to just make it so you can't have minus armor on Rosh, but instead he gains 1 extra 1 now.
Uh, no, I think that would be too huge of a change. I think, to be honest, this is whenever Roshan gets one armor like this. I think more of it as a way of dealing with heroes that can solo Roshan or do him easily with one ally, like in Ursa, Enigma. They're the ones who get hit the hardest because, yeah, Roche level 1 lineups, I mean, if you get away with it, you get away with it anyway. That one armor doesn't really change that, but maybe your Lycan can't do it fast enough, so he gets caught this time, or maybe your Ursa needs a little more time before he can solo it, that kind of stuff. I think that's, as far as team comps go, when you run to Roche, it's generally not that 1 or 2 seconds that cuts it. But this, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would say it's mainly a nerf to the Roshan soloists, which is, of course, Lycan in particular, I guess.
Can you explain this second line to me?
Attack speed now always continually adjusts based on the latest modification applied to the unit. Yeah, okay, so I think this is a bug fix, actually. I'm not
Oh.
sure if you saw this, but in Dota 1, when you were attacking a unit like Enchantress with Untouchable, right, your attack would be really slow.
Hmm.
And then if you start attacking another target, you start attacking normally again. But in Dota
Oh.
2, it was coded so that when
Oh
you
God.
attacked Enchantress, you would be applied a debuff to, and that would basically almost disarm you for a duration when you were starting to attack another target.
Oh, I see. Oh my, I
Uh,
cannot speak. What have you done to my voice, Cinderin? Give me my voice back.
Let me see when you
Okay.
when you voice over the question mark. This makes it so
Yeah.
heavy attack speed slows don't linger into the next attack, even after the duration has expired. So there was a clip with like someone trying to attack Enchantress and canceling the attack, and he was basically like disarmed for 6 seconds from attacking another target because he was so
Yeah.
slow. So
Okay, I gotcha.
it's basically a bug fix, I think.
So the first thing that I noticed in this entire update was the captain's draft changes, which we'll just briefly go over because this directly relates to us more than anybody else, I guess.
Yeah.
The hero selection pool has been increased by 1 per class or whatever you want to call it. So that's 3 extra heroes, but you also get 2 extra bans. So what are your thoughts on this since you are the captain's draft guru after all, Sindrin?
Um, I just think it's really cool that we're getting some love in our mode. Uh, I don't remember the last time Captain's Draft got changed, so the fact that this is happening means that it was a success and that they
Yep.
want to take it in a direction and maybe try to. What I read into this is basically that they're trying to make Captain's Draft. I wouldn't say more competitive because I feel like it is a competitive mode already, but maybe try to encourage more people to play this mode by making it more. It's it is in a way a balance change, I guess you could say. Having an extra ban for each team, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you set up the lineups, and of course, with more heroes coming into the pool, then I mean overall, it's just you could say, hmm. I'm really trying to
Well
find a good
said,
way of explaining
Sindrin.
this.
Well said. Very
Uh,
nicely done. We can
yeah.
move on if you just want to, not even
No, I
finish
mean
that
this
thought.
is a really important thing. So I want to find a good way of explaining my thoughts here. It's a little hard to put into words. So the fact that there's 2 extra bands in total means that even though the hero pool gets 3 bigger, more top tier heroes will be removed in the bans. So that means that the mode itself will have less top tier and more creativity built in, basically. That's, to me, that's kind of the main thing here, because in our tournament, whenever top tier heroes were in, they were generally banned, right? Because when you're playing Captain's Draft, then there's even less room to counter those heroes because you don't have the entire pool. So maybe this is a way of trying to encourage people who play the mode to branch out even more and be even more creative, because even more of their stable heroes will not be available. I mean, if you look at this, there's 6 bans now. There's a pretty high chance that in these games, for example, something like supports become even more valuable because you can choose to ban 3 of them now. And the fact that there's 1 more intel doesn't necessarily mean that that intel is a support, for example. So I think it's really interesting. Why did you skip the illusion rune, by the way?
I'm
didn't.
Curious. Okay, I did. So melee illusions created from the Rune of Illusion get 300% damage instead of 200. Is that? I guess it's a decent deal.
The other way around, right?
Oh, wait, they take 200% damage instead of. Ooh, so they're tankier. That's good.
Yeah, and that's. I feel like it makes sense for the melee illusions to be better because the melee illusion rune is really garbage. So I like the idea of making it better for the melee, but not changing it for the ranged heroes because. Yeah, I mean that's kind of intuitive why it makes sense.
I never really thought about that. That's true though. That is, like when you go in for the last hits or something. Like, okay, we're not even gonna. This is gonna go off on major tangents that we don't want to be a part of. I'm stopping myself in my tracks here. So let's go over the heroes, and some of these changes are.
Epo no longer available in ability draft. Important.
Yeah, very important. Okay, so that's just like there's too many. They're basically saying there's too many bugs. We don't want to deal with them, so let's just take them out of the mode. Probably the easier thing to do. You can't blame Valve too much.
In
yeah.
80, so.
Well, true. Okay. But so many other things are as well. Anyway, heroes changed. Abaddon. This is one of the cooler changes in the patch. Aghanim Scepter borrowed time, so I'm guessing it keeps the extra duration as well.
Yes.
And in addition to that, it now redirects 35% of all damage dealt to nearby allied heroes to Abaddon when active.
Oh, that's really sick, actually, when you think about it. So
what are your thoughts on this? And it's heroes within 900 range.
Yeah, so the thing about this is there's actually, as we get further down the changelog, there's a couple of Ags upgrades in this patch, and I guess the goal at some point is to have every hero have an Aghanim Scepter upgrade, but it's one of those where you just feel like this is really cool, but mainly a pub thing, because in competitive matches, Abaddon will very rarely get Ags. This does not, to me, validate putting him in a carry role still, and if he's in the support role...
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, and okay, a lot of times when you read these patch notes, and everybody's fall victim to this, where they read something, they think it's amazing, or they think it's horrible, and they end up being completely wrong one way or the other, right?
I know that feeling.
Now, this Aghanim Scepter, I feel like this is actually, could be legitimate. Look at the ancient... Okay, so look at the ancient Apparition. Typically, he is now like a 4, but people still farm Ags on him. They prioritize that. So my question to you is, why wouldn't they do the same for Abaddon, even if it's just the only item, the real item he gets? That seems pretty legitimate, especially considering you can activate your ult. It's not like you have to get focus for it to go off.
That's a really good point that I didn't think about. Yeah, you can just use it. That's really true. Then, of course, you sacrifice your own second life, if you will, but you can save your team. That's true. That's really cool. Now, I'm not going to say no, it's not going to be used, because I think, in some scenarios, in some games, if you're playing like pushing strats or team fight lineups, this is pretty sick, right? But the one problem is Abaddon, in comparison to AA, he has a harder time getting gold. And the reason why AA often gets the Ag Scepter, or as a position 4 is able to get items, is that he gets a lot of assists and he gets last hits with his ult globally. So you get a lot of more gold. Abaddon doesn't have any mechanic to get gold. He can somewhat farm the jungle with his Aphotic Shield, I guess, but it's really not that effective. But I think, in the right lineup, what Abaddon usually gets, he gets Mechanism or Force Staff or a Vlad's or something like that. And in the right lineup, maybe you get the gold to get this instead, but I feel like then you're getting Ags over something else. It's very unrealistic to say, my Abaddon is going to get Mech and then Ags in the game. Then we're talking like 50 minutes, which... I mean, if you get to the 50-minute point, it's still completely sick, right? This is really good. When your point about toggling it, I think is the most important thing, is that you can choose to use it. I think that's more important than anything else. So I retract my statement that this is not going to be so viable. I think it's a lot better now, but I still think it's going to be, I don't know, 1/5 of the Abaddon games. Maybe he will get it.
Oh, that's perfectly fine with me. That would be awesome
Yeah,
to see.
it's good. It's
Okay,
cool.
next, Ancient Apparition, Chilling Touch, attack speed reduction has been increased, which means this is a nerf. I would say it's a slight nerf. I guess what is that, a 20? Okay, my math, I don't even want to begin.
33% nerf.
33% increase
Yes.
in the reduction. So again, just it's a nerf overall, obviously, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal considering that it's not going to change anybody's build, essentially. And I'm a
No.
little bit surprised that they didn't just
Sweet.
buff. Well, I guess he doesn't need a buff, but I'm surprised that Cold Feet started out as, other than his ult, his best skill as of like 2 years ago, and now it's his worst skill, which I find hilarious.
I wouldn't say that. It's just situational. And the one problem that skill has is that it's a combo skill. So in comparison to the other skills, you need a setup. And it's something that, if you think about it, supports that need a setup are not really that popular right now. Leshrac stun, Lina stun, how often do these heroes really get picked? Not so often because they need a setup. You want your support to be the setup. And AA is the setup with Chilling Touch because he just makes your heroes powerful and then they commit, right? But you can't really initiate with Cold Feet. That doesn't make it a bad ability, but it's reliant on other things. So I still think it's a great ability, but you need to build a strategy around it, basically, to make it useful.
You could say that about any skill. Anyway, moving on. Anti-Mage.
Yeah.
I like getting the last word, if you haven't noticed. Anti-Mage, Mana Void's area of effect has been increased by 50. Not a big deal, although it is pretty enormous now.
In
I can't remember the original
2016, it's going to
radius.
be 1,000. Then it's
Yeah,
going to be sick.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's just an interesting change overall. We don't really see much Anti-Mage, but I don't think that changes much. Axe, and we're going to see this a little bit down the road.
I'm so happy about this.
Counter Helix now uses pseudo-random chance, and according to the question mark, this reduces the chance that a very unlucky or unlucky streak proc occurs. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, this means that if you miss a proc, there's a better chance that you get it the next time until it actually procs, and then it starts over.
So again. It's basically instead of true random, which it was before, where it's like 17% chance on every attack, every time you got hit. The way pseudo-random works is that it's an algorithm that basically over the course of the entire game will reach roughly 17%, right? But if you get a counter helix, the chance of getting a counter helix immediately after is lower, whereas if you get hit 4 times and don't get a counter helix, the chance gets really high. This is why when you're playing Void, you never feel like you get 3 bashes in a row. Sometimes you get 2 if you get lucky, but the third one is really low chance. Whereas if you hit 4 times without a bash, you can expect you get one. And the reason this is important for Axe in particular is that when he's jungling, everything about this hero revolves around counter helix. You have nothing else. So if you hit a really unlucky streak, you can lose a full level in the jungle because you have to go back to base. Now you know what you can rely on pretty much, which is, this is one of my favorite changes. I'm actually shocked this hasn't been pseudo-random, why it wasn't the case. But now that I see it, I can definitely tell from my own experience that I had some runs where I'm like, okay, I just got hit 15 times by creeps and I didn't get a spin. I mean, come on, right? So this is great. I love this change.
Well, it's kind of the goal of Ice Frog. This is kind of the goal for Ice Frog to make things less RNG. This is obviously still RNG. It's just more consistent RNG, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So
we get to some different RNG soon.
Yes. Okay, Flaming Lasso mana increased by 75, which was that what it was originally at? Either way, I think this is a good change because Blink Dagger is free, so this kind of, it used to be 75 mana, so that's basically what it used to cost, I guess.
Yep. That was going to be my exact point as well. Good nerf to Batrider overall. You need to be a little more economic with your mana usage, which means this is not only about using all your spells, but it also means that if you have mana burns, they're really good against Batrider now, because you need to get him basically to half mana, then he can't cast his ultimate anymore, which is really important. So I think this is a good way of nerfing the hero for now. So I'm good with that.
Beastmaster, base damage increased by 4. Absolutely no difference unless you correct me. That's just it just seems so random.
He has 4 more damage now than before.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Good. So we'll still never see him. Excellent point. All right.
No, seriously, the thing about these changelogs that I think is really funny is that when heroes get buffed, even if they seem completely irrelevant, the fact that this hero gets buffed and other heroes get nerfed mean that people rediscover the hero. Beastmaster is maybe on the top of my list of underpicked heroes for now in both Captain's Mode and Captain's Draft. I'm like,
So you're saying this is a way for Ice Frog to say, hey, this hero's in Dota 2. You should probably pick up
you
because
would
we
be
just buffed him.
surprised by how much these things mean. And it's not because 4 is a huge number, unless you're Hrost, then it's a really big number. But it's still, just when you look at the changes in isolation, then you would say many heroes don't really get changed that much. But in the bigger picture, the fact that this hero gets nerfed, other mid heroes get, this hero gets buffed, other mid heroes get nerfed, means this hero gets buffed twice as much as it says, if that makes sense. Because relative to all the heroes, he gets even better. And changes like this make people rediscover it. It's just how it is. It's been like that
I guess
in
we'll see.
every single patch.
I think I agree with you in the fact that he's underutilized right now because, especially with Blink Dagger changes, I feel like he should
Yeah, and
have
with the
come
Call
back
of
on
the
the
Wild
scene.
being separate units.
Yeah, that is an amazing change.
And you can have 2 boars at once. This hero is really good. I don't know.
Blood. What is wrong with my voice, Cinderin? Help me. Help me so much.
Oh, you're like always.
Okay, gotcha. Bloodseeker, Blood Rage cast point improved from 0.6 to 0.4, and it can no longer be dispelled, which means that is 2 abilities of his that go through BKB. Well, I guess it doesn't go through BKB, but you can't dispel it by using BKB.
It's like Enfeeble now.
Right.
Exactly like Enfeeble. Except that it doesn't remove damage, but makes them silenced and give damage.
So do you think this makes any difference for him?
I think this is a great buff. I think Bloodseeker's biggest weakness as a hero is actually the cast point. That's the thing that many people have been saying, please buff the cast point on Bloodseeker, because needing to use half a second, or what was it, 0.6 on casting Blood Rage is really, when you're a melee hero, you're really dependent on being able to stay in range. And when casting Blood Rage, basically that your target get like 200 units away from you every time, then it makes a big difference. This is, to me, is one of the biggest single hero buffs actually in this version, which I'm not sure many others are going to agree with. But just the cast point thing is a big deal. Now, the fact that it can't be dispelled as well means it's like in the mid-late game, Bloodseeker usually falls off because Blood Rage becomes absolute garbage. But think about it this way. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but before, if you Blood Raged yourself and then BKB'd, it would remove Blood Rage, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
So now you can actually Blood Rage yourself in late game and BKB and do really high damage.
Exactly.
And
so you had to
you
like
can also
choose.
or you can counter an enemy target knowing that if you land it, which is a lot easier now because it's faster, they can't avoid it. Like when that's on them, it's a 9-second silence. It's a huge late game ability now. It's really, really good. I think this hero got buffed the most maybe in this patch.
Yeah,
At least top 3.
I completely agree with that. I mean, if you put it on it, so like I guess I don't know if people still do this, but I'm assuming they do. You keep it at level 1 for a really long ass time because you don't want the extra damage to come into effect. You just want that. I think it's like a 6-second silence level 1, which is insane.
Yeah,
and the fact that it can't be dispelled now. And even if you get it, like, let's say you have it upgraded all the way and you don't want to give the enemy carry a ton of base damage, you just give that base damage / silence to, like, somebody that actually uses spells that doesn't, like, their auto attack doesn't really matter. Or you can
give
just
it
use
to
it on yourself.
Cast Rupture, use it on yourself, use BKB, and you kill stuff.
Yeah.
It's really legit. This is awesome. This could bring him to competitive, not gonna lie. It's actually really good.
Well, he has a lot of potential. I mean, a lot of things kind of counteract. I mean, Rupture going through BKB, I thought was a huge change.
Yeah.
His biggest counter, obviously, is TPing away. So you just have to buy a basher every time, I guess. I don't know. But either way, if only Force Staff canceled TP, Cinder, he'd be the best hero in the game. Anyway.
Oh, that's an exexaggeration, but he will be good.
Okay, how dare you. Bounty Hunter, track cast range increased, so it's basically what the level 3 used to be. Okay, that's good. Good buff. Not a huge change, though. Brewmaster, I love this change, although I don't know how much it actually will help. If you have not attacked, so both these lines are for Drunken Brawler, which is his passive. So if you have not attacked in 10 seconds, you'll get a crit. If you have not been attacked for 10 seconds, you will dodge the next attack. What are your thoughts on this? And it carries over to his Fire Spirit once you get Aghanims.
So the thing, that's true. So the question is how it works on his ult actually. When you use your ult, if it counts it as you have not attacked or been attacked with the Fire Spirit for 10 seconds because you haven't used your ultimate for 2 minutes,
Yeah,
or if the counter starts when you make your ult. if the counter is already done so that you're guaranteed to dodge and crit with the first hit of the Fire Spirit, then it's obviously a lot better. But I'm just thinking for the hero, this is a way for Brewmaster to reliably be able to get more solo kills. I think that's kind of the biggest buff about it. So in teamfights, you will generally blink, clap, split without even doing an attack because you don't want to get silenced or stunned. And that even if it's just 0.3 seconds or something it takes for you to swing, then that could be the timer you get hexed in, and then your entire team fight is fucked. So I think this is a solo kill potential thing and a laning thing, where when you get your blink dagger or if you get an opening, the fact that you know that if you clap your target you get a crit, I feel like it's huge for the one-on-ones, but mainly that. And while it sounds like a crazy change, I don't actually think it's that big of a buff, but I love the idea behind it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it's gonna make any big deal at all, but hopefully with your previous logic with Beastmaster, this will say to people, hey, this hero is awesome because I think he really is, especially with the changes from the last patch. I thought were
He is also on my top 3 of underused heroes. Just wait, when we get to the end of this patch, I have 6 heroes on my top 3.
Well, looking forward to. Well, yeah, Broodmaster though, he's one of my favorites for sure. So looking forward to seeing him. Bristleback, awesome. Warpath no longer has unique values for the first movements. I actually have not read this one at all, so you explain these to me.
So the way Warpath worked before was that the first stack gave more than the stacks in sequence. Mm-hmm. So the first time you cast it, you would get 5, 7, or 10% move speed, and then you would get 1, 2, 3%. Now instead, it gives the same on all casts, but it gives a lot more. So if you do the math, this actually buffs Bristleback a hell of a lot when he gets a couple of stacks off. So the first cast is weaker, but after he does 2 casts on level 1 and 2, let's see, on level 1, 2 casts would give you 6%, now it gives 6%. On level 2, it would give 9%, now it gives 8 when you cast twice, so a little weaker on the second cast, and before it would give 10 on level 3. Level 3 would give you 13 when you cast twice, now it gives 10. So for all levels, 3 stacks of Warpath and higher are stronger than before, but stack 1 and 2 are the same or weaker.
That's really easy to get 3 stacks too. I mean,
yes, exactly. You have
2 quills, 1 goo, or vice versa. So
yeah, both abilities. What is it? The cooldown on quill is like 4. No, wait, it's 2, right? And the goo is 1.5 or something.
Really low.
Let me see. It's ridiculous low. I'm just looking that up really quickly to see here. But I would say overall, this is definitely a buff. And
oh, sorry, I was reading something. Actually, I'm gonna scroll up and find it.
It's 1.5 and 3 seconds respectively. The cooldown.
I'm actually gonna have to search for this. Bristleback, something with hexing. I wanted to get your. Okay, so there was a bug fix. It says fixed hex disabling Bristleback's Bristleback passive ability. So
I actually thought that was supposed to work that way.
So the wording, and sometimes Ice Frog's wording is confusing to me. Does this mean, and I mean I'm leaning towards this means that it didn't used to do that, and now by hexing him, his Bristleback still works?
Yes, exactly. Beforehand, there were 2 counters to Bristleback only, like the ability, which were to hex him or to doom him. Everything else would be reduced by Bristleback. But apparently the hex thing was, I don't know if it was a bug, but since it says fixed, I would assume it was a bug, actually, that hex removed Bristleback. So now the only ability in the game that counters Bristleback is doom.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything else is reduced.
Okay, good to know.
So he got buffed even more. That's a good point.
I was under the impression that hex was supposed to disable it. But
yeah, me too. I thought it was, but
because it disables evasion. Maybe there's some evasion it doesn't get rid of, but I'm pretty sure most of them. So okay,
yeah, it removes. I think it removes both backtrack and evasion of all kinds.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
So this is an anomaly.
No, I'm curious to see this because I feel like Bristleback he was a top tier pick for a while, then he fell off a little bit. Now I feel like he's going to rise again.
Right? For no reason he fell off. No changes.
There's a couple of reasons, like the fact that you would actually start directly counterpicking Bristleback.
No, I meant no changes. No changes in the actual updates.
It's trends and people getting used to playing against it. I think this brings the hero back for me.
Cool.
No pun intended. So when Doom is out, this hero will always have his passive. That's a big change because when you think late game, the way you counter Bristleback is by hexing him and killing him. You can't do that anymore in the same way. And as a matter of fact, Scythe got nerfed. Actually, we're going to get to that a bit later on as well. Yep. So.
Okay, Broodmother, I did not read this one at all. Spiderling's poison sting damage per second increased from 4 to 8. Spinweb's free pathing no longer deactivates when enemy has vision of Broodmother. Spinweb's free pathing is disabled for 3 seconds when Broodmother takes damage.
Yep.
Uses the same damage. Okay, uses the same damage as Blink Dagger. And Insatiable Hunger has been buffed again. They keep buffing this thing every patch.
At some point, it's going to be a satanic. You just toggle.
Yeah, I mean, what Satanic's 140%, I think, right? So it's getting there.
It's even more, isn't it?
Isn't
Satanic is really high.
Okay.
I can't. It's funny I don't know these things. I'm such a noob.
No wonder you didn't make it as a pro. Can't remember the
I hate
percentages of Satanic. Come on. The funny thing is, I just read this like 2 days ago, and I don't remember.
I think it's 175%. Let me check.
Okay.
That's how I remember it. Yeah, 175% for 3.5.
That's pretty sick. Yeah, it'll get there. Another couple patches, Ice Frog. It'll do it.
Yeah, just 2016 Broodmother will have 200% on level 1. So this is some sort of Broodmother has just been garbage. Let's be honest. It's really been bad compared to what it used to be. So what I like about this is that it doesn't. The way the hero is being balanced is still not by making spiderlings more tanky, but by making them deal more damage. So what used to make Broodmother completely insane was that the spiderlings gave low bounty and that they were really tanky and hard to kill. Now they're still as hard to kill as ever, but they gave less bounty in the last patch, I think, and or did they? I don't know. Never mind. This is more of a harassment
type.
Changed
so much. Yeah.
So the fact that Poison Sting does twice as much damage makes this hero better at jungling. So what Broodmother usually does is that it will farm the lane and then it will send the spiderlings to the jungle and farm. They farm a lot faster now, so you get more gold per minute. You can harass way more effectively in the lane because now this Poison Sting damage is actually starting to get so significant that you can harass your enemy out of lane with spiderlings and not only by using spawn spiderlings on the target as a harassment source. So this is interesting. And then finally, the whole pathing thing with web has been, a new experiment with trying to fix or balance around the hero. This free pathing thing, working the way with Blink Dagger, I think is great because when free pathing was deactivated, when you could see Broodmother, this hero was just completely almost countered when you had like a sentry on the lane. Then he couldn't, as long as you had a sentry on the lane, he couldn't go into the trees anymore. Yeah. So how are you supposed to lane? Now you need to take damage too. So even if they see you, you can still move around.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a balance between the two. So
overall, clearly a buff for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you think we're gonna see some Brood in competitive?
I don't know.
She was added to CM last patch, I believe, right? Because she got major nerfs last time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think.
CM.
I feel like
no. She's not in CM, is she? Because she didn't show up once in Captain's Draft, so I take that back. I don't think she's in CM.
Yeah, I would be surprised actually. Yeah, you're right. So it's not, but it's still they're still trying to tweak it. I don't know if this is an attempt at making Brood a pick at TI. But
I think it's too late, or is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I still think this hero has so many counters and so many ways of being dealt with.
Well, yeah, not to beat a dead horse, or a dead spider in this case. I think the problem with her, like at the end of the day, is that it turns. I guess this isn't a problem for some teams, but it's really 4-on-5 because unless there's a way to set up your webs faster in a different lane, this hero will always be the same, always have the same issues, in my opinion.
Or was it that spin web got changed recently? There was something about the casting on that. Let me find this real quick because I remember spin web being changed quite significantly actually. So it's always 30 seconds cooldown. But God, this homepage is terribly coded. I can't see it. Fuck. Sure. Okay, I'm gonna try to click the ability. There we go. Okay. Yeah, you can only just cast one web still at the target point.
I think honestly, that's the major issue with her. So I would like to see more work with the spin web.
I was thinking, what if she could have it had like charges, so you like Fire Remnant, for example, on Ember Spirit. So if you don't use web for a while, you have 2 webs you can cast in succession.
Yeah, I'd like that.
And then they have individual cooldown, because then you can TP to a fight and not just throw 1 web, but 2 in successation, right?
Right. Or if you just want to completely switch lanes, you can actually not have to take 10 minutes to set up an entire lane of webs. You can just do it within a couple minutes. I think that would be much better.
When I used to play with the Swedes back in the old MTW, they would always call it to build a house. That Broodmother built a house in a lane.
How cute.
I think
cute.
I think it's a pretty good way of thinking about it, is that you need a lot of time to set up your home, and then you really don't want to move.
Yeah.
So, unless I was wondering if Spinweb actually got that charge thing I was talking about with 2 charges, but it didn't. Unless I'm missing something here.
I
So
don't
think
believe so. Yeah.
that would make a lot of sense for me as a change.
That would be
But
hilarious if you were suggesting something that was already done, though. That would be great.
yeah, that's why I was making sure. But yeah, okay. Let's
All right,
let's
moving
move
on. Centaur, unfortunately, was nerfed. His Hoof Stomp now costs a little bit more mana. Not a huge deal since he only has 1 activatable other than his ult, but still something to think about. I think the mana burning becomes even more prevalent for him. I mean, you can
Yeah.
only cast a couple Hoof Stomps before you're out of mana, so probably
It's
needed.
actually there are a couple of things that make this really significant. So the first thing is on level 1, it costs 45 more mana. So it's like 50% more expensive on level 1 than it used to be. So, you know, for general lane play and for one-on-one lane play, he runs out of mana a lot faster. Like you said, mana burns are more useful against him. And in terms of his combination, the fact that the Blink Dagger got buffed for him, again, this is kind of a way of compensating for that, right? Even you could say on level 4 it's the same. So how often do you really get Blink Dagger before you have level 4 Hoof Stomp? So yeah, I guess that's an invalid point. But I'm starting to see this pattern that heroes that really got a lot of buff by the Blink Dagger removing its mana are now getting rebalanced by getting different mana costs so that they're not free to go. I don't know when
Well, I
Sandman's turn
also
is going to
think,
come.
like, a lot of people, myself included, don't even get second level of Hoof Stomp until level 8, I believe it is, because you get 1 in your return, 1 in Stomp, and the rest in Double Edge.
Then it's a really big deal, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can definitely get your Blink Dagger before you max Hoof Stomp. If you do that build, which you're right,
Well,
actually.
in a lot of ways,
Usually
that
maxed
first
up
level is like a big value point, so this is kind of counteracting that a bit, because I think it was a
Yeah.
little bit too cheap overall.
I think that's a really good point. Especially, yeah, so now the build order or the skill building isn't necessarily as obvious as it was before. Because now upgrading the ability is free, if you will. It's like it costs the same anyway on all levels, so it only gets better.
Yeah.
Beforehand, it got worse in mana cost, but better in utility. And
I
now,
still don't see people getting this over Double Edge, though. Unless there's like some specific lane that needs an
that would be a little
extra
bit. It would be a
stun.
little counterintuitive, right? Because then you would also have got it before. Since on level 4 now it's as expensive as it was before. So I feel like, yeah, I think we've covered this, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's good.
This, Chaos
I want
Knight.
to point at the next one. I would like to bring this one up.
Sure, go ahead.
This was something I was thinking about, I don't know, half a year or a year ago. It's like everything about Chaos Knight is super random, apart from his ult.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, why don't we change Chaos Knight's ultimate? So instead of spawning 1 illusion on level 1, 2 illusions on level 2, and 3 on level 3, it spawns a random amount of illusions between X and Y on all levels. So on level 1, it would spawn a random number between like 0 and 2. So you had a chance of using the animation and getting nothing. Or you get lucky and get 2. And now where it's like Chaos Knight has to be luck based on everything. So to point that out, Chaos Bolt is random in stun and damage. Reality Rift is random in distance. He has a crit, which of course is a percentage-based ability. And his damage is really spread. He has by far the way biggest spread in terms of damage. So in Dota 2, that's actually not directly visible on the hero, because when you look at your hero's damage, it will always show the average of your minimum and maximum damage. But if you mouse over, you can see the details. I think on level 1, Chaos Knight has a spread of 40 damage per hit. 30 or 40. It's like completely crazy. Let me actually just check this hero while I talk about this. So let's see, what's his base damage at? Base damage is 49 to 79.
That's insane. I didn't even know
That's
that.
crazy when you think about it. So
Yeah,
his
that's
average
insane.
damage on level 1 is 64, but he can do up to 80 and down to 50 on the first hit, or on every hit, right?
It's funny that, you know, all these heroes and all these items are being balanced towards less RNG, like more consistent. And then there's Ogre Magi and now Chaos Knight.
Yeah,
Or
these heroes have to be that way.
Yeah.
It's like, if you
I'm fine
remove
with
that
that.
from Chaos Knight, he's not Chaos Knight anymore. That's what makes him Chaos, is that it's random.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time before Phantasm, which I guess we should just read aloud, has a 50% chance to create 1 extra illusion when cast. So now that's just a huge buff, basically. Because it's RNG only being able to go in his favor, whereas the other abilities got rebalanced so that you could get less lucky as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like the change, but from a competitive
only-
standpoint, I really don't see this making any difference whatsoever. He's lost. Ever since Wisp was nerfed with the tether not stunning anymore, his main use is just
I don't
gone.
know. There are games.
Oh,
I
no, of
swear to
course.
God,
He's a niche
people.
pick. Very niche pick, though.
The problem is people don't think about it. I bet I could go over the last 100 competitive games and I could take like 20 of them where Chaos Knight would have been an amazing last pick. But it never comes to mind for people. So what makes this hero absolutely crazy in late game is that if you don't have AoE damage, this is the best carry late game almost, at least top 5. He's crazy when you don't have AoE damage because he doesn't need to itemize damage. He needs to itemize tankability and then he automatically gets damage from that. So if you're playing a super late game lineup and you have like super farmed lifestealer, Chaos Knight uses his ult and he kills you in 2 seconds and you have no chance. And now if he gets 4 illusions with his ult, if he gets lucky, it's 50%. I mean, come on. You have a heart with this hero and you use Phantasm in late game, he cleans up. Seriously. It's absolutely sick.
Well, keep in
And there
mind.
is no other counter than AoE damage, to be honest. There's like, what else would you do? If you hex him before he uses ult, sure, but that counters everyone, right?
So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not going to disagree with you wholeheartedly, but partially because it's not only the Wisp, but it was also, and I think this is even a bigger deal, the armlet nerf. It just turns out
That's true.
that that is the, like, that item, nobody gets it anymore. Like, you'll see it occasionally on Lifestealer, but it's not even like a core item on him anymore. It's such a huge nerf to that item.
The funny thing, though, is that for Chaos Knight, that's like the hero that was nerfed the least by that nerf, I feel. Because the way it works is that what you would do is you would toggle your armlet and then use ult. So all of your illusions would have the armlet strength. They still do. So you can toggle your armlet, use the ult, and then the Phantasm is just as strong, and they don't lose health from it. Whereas a hero like Lifestealer doesn't have an illusion-based ability, so it's him only, right?
I guess that's true, yeah.
I'd say in a sense it's still good for Chaos Knight. And of course this is a hero who will get armlet and then heart. And then when you have the heart, you can have the armlet on constantly without...
I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, so, I'm convinced. You've convinced me. I would love to see Chaos Knight again for sure.
Me too. It's an awesome hero.
Alright, moving on. Penitence for Chen. The cooldown has been reduced, makes 0 difference. I don't think anybody's going to get this, although we're starting a new series soon that I won't spill the beans on. But, okay, I'll spill the beans on it. Cinder and I will be playing dual lanes. It's an A to Z challenge. That's all I'll say for now, other than when we pick Chen, it's going to be me playing it. Cinder, and I'm calling it now.
Okay.
And I'm getting Penitence, Test of Faith, Dagon. I'm not taking over any creeps. Okay.
Well, the problem you'll have with that is that you'll be fighting with me for farm.
Okay.
So,
how's that a problem exactly?
It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be really fun. But yeah, let's not go into details with that. We have enough to cover already.
Yes.
So,
okay. So moving on, because just
I think
stop me if you think it makes a difference.
Really quickly, just the point with this, what I'm reading into this, is that every Chen will always get Test of Faith higher because it just got better and Penitence never really improved. I think this is a way of making it more valuable for Chen to get Penitence in some cases and to, make him more powerful in mid-late game. This is kind of the best ability Chen has in mid-late game when you think about it. It's a percentage-based amplifier. So
I really like the skill. It's just,
might make the difference whether you can get it off twice or once.
I really like the skill.
Hand of God is still, as you know, an amazing ability, and I guess saying Penitence is the best ability is an exaggeration. I guess maybe the Send Back is actually still the best he has in late game. But the fact that this is 3 seconds shorter on cooldown can make the difference of whether you get it off once or twice in a fight. And it is significant. It's Chen's best damage source, if you will, in super late game. So
what if they, the Send Back, how they flip-flopped it before between Holy Persuasion and Test of Faith? What if they put it on Penitence?
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I'm a huge fan of amplified damage because from a spectator's point of view, like Soulcatcher as an example, I love when people play Shadow Demon in some sort of dual lane, like with the Centaur, for example, because burst damage just makes it so much more exciting. And I don't know if that would be the case for Chen.
It's always fun to see a hero disappearing.
Well, of course, absolutely. I don't know. I think it's a really good skill, though. Very underrated. I'll put that on my top 3 list in this patch of underrated skills. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Clinkz Death Pact cooldown reduced to 35 seconds at the highest level.
That's really
I believe that's the same, or around the same duration as the actual
duration
skill.
Is 30, right?
The duration of Death Pact is 30?
I think it's 30.
Okay.
No, it's 35. You're right.
Ooh, so 100% of the time you can have it on. That's awesome.
Yeah. Apart from the timer it takes to cast. So the only downtime you have is to your cast point.
Right.
This is huge because in late game you will often have these kind of fights where The death pact will expire during the fight, and you have a little cooldown. Now, if you're fighting in a creep wave, or with Chen, or against Enchantress, or with any sort of creep, Necronomicons, whatever, you can actually immediately reset your ult. That's, of course, it's not the best thing to eat a Necrobook unit, but it could make the difference. I really think this is a cool change, even though I don't know if Clinkz really needed a buff, but
I like watching
it's
Clinkz. That's again with the burst damage. I don't know what it is about these heroes, but that skill, Death Pact, has always been very awkward in a way. I don't know. It's like, hey guys, I'm in a fight. Oh wait, I need to go eat a creep real quick. You know, it's just, I don't know, somewhat awkward. But I guess he's not a big team fight guy anyway. He's more just go pick off people real quick. So nothing changes there. But that's definitely a buff overall. Okay, Dazzle Poison Touch no longer causes a mini stun. I believe that's on the first. It's only
yeah,
yeah.
this is
So the
a
first
really
one.
intelligent change.
So so let me talk about this, and you tell me where I'm wrong. So obviously Dazzle's picked all the time, so needed some sort of a nerf. This will not stop TPs until when? Like you have to
Level
wait a few seconds for the first stun?
So the way this works, this got changed, I think actually in the previous patch, and was the reason Dazzle got a lot more popular was because of Poison Touch getting much better. So the way it works is that on level 1 it slows, and then on level 2 it slows even harder after a set amount of time. At level 3 it slows even harder. And then on level 4 it stuns at the end. So the thing is, now Dazzle can't stop TPs at all because the stun kicks in after 3 seconds. So you actually need to, if you precast it before the target TPs, then it's going to snap, like always. But when the TP starts, Dazzle can't stop them anymore. And of course, that's just for TPs. We're talking all sorts of channeling abilities. We're talking a hero like, I don't know, this is a little weird example, but Timbersaw, in theory, will always chain now. He won't get stunned by the mini stun from Poison Touch. And I think this is a really good change because in a way it was counterintuitive the way it worked before, and maybe also a tad too powerful considering what else the hero has. So I think it's a good change.
Still a very powerful hero, and I think one of the major buffs from last time was the weave increased in duration, which I think a lot of people, including myself, overlooked, and it's sick how good that skill is. But anyway, moving on. Disruptor Connect Field cooldown reduced by 3 seconds. Okay, he's still awesome. Don't even know why he
Yeah.
needed a buff. He's still amazing.
Don't want to talk too much about that. Just,
Doom.
again, it's the thing that you might get 2 off in a fight instead of 1.
Okay. Doom damage no longer ignores magic shields. So I didn't even know this was the case, but I guess if you cast it on somebody who had pipe, the pipe did literally nothing, huh? Before. Is that correct? But now it does.
This is a little puzzling for me because I actually think... So I did this video on damage types at some point, a guide to that. And I seem to remember that Doom is a universal damage type. It's a very rare thing. There's very few abilities in the game that actually has that damage type. But I seem to recall in my test that pipe actually did block damage from it. Maybe I remember incorrectly, or I'm misunderstanding this. I'm actually not completely sure about that.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that either, but apparently pipe is the one thing that Doom won't go through, I guess.
What else gives a magic barrier? Flame Guard.
Yeah.
From Ember Spirit. Don't know.
I'm sure there's more.
Okay.
I can't
Well,
think.
regardless,
Anyway,
it's to me this is not too big of a deal. Yeah, I think it's fine to just leave it at that. It's still the same hero. There's just a few situations where it's a little...
Still counters everybody, so still good to
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
Drow Ranger, Gust knockback duration increase. And I figured they'd do this because it was just so... A lot of times it was so inconsequential, you know?
Yep.
And I think this is a good start. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough, but it's a nice... I like this change.
Yeah, so this basically makes it half a second of stun. Right, so while you're knockback, you can't do anything. So it's a stun for half a second, and the knockback range is still the same. The most important thing about this, I feel, is as a gap closer, because Drow's problem is that when someone's closer, ultimate doesn't work. And now when they get knocked back for just that 0.3 second longer, that might be enough for you to make enough distance for your ult to work again. That's huge, right?
What if you had a deafening blast? What if she had deafening
range.
blast? Would she be the best hero in the game? How good would she be?
Pretty sick, I think.
I mean, this is kind of like a miniature deafening blast, you know?
That's true.
Invoker is the arguably the best hero in the game. So I guess.
Don't know.
Oh, you
Still
don't
Ember
know?
Spirit.
Really? Okay. We'll talk about that very shortly. Earth Spirit, I don't really care. It's fine.
Yeah, okay,
Do it.
after the patch. Wow, now you're being lame. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's go
No,
on.
I meant right here when we're coming up. Earthshaker creeps. Okay, this one's really weird. Creeps no longer try to path around fissure. They will wait for it to disappear. So they're just like amalgamate together, group up next to the fissure. And Echo Slam no longer ignores units that are invisible in the fog of war. That's like okay. I'm not
Do you
sure why
know
that was
what's
ever
the
the
biggest
case.
thing about this Earthshaker change on the first point? Try to think for a second
Okay.
and tell me what that means. This is absolutely huge.
Let's see. So Earthshaker, beginning of the game, I guess, would block off creeps in. I guess people have been doing it in the mid lane to go to for the creeps to go to the ancients.
You can't do the Fissure thing anymore in any lane. This is what Shaker would use to win mid lane for an ally or get XP off.
What about off lane? If you put the Earthshaker off lane, and the creeps just like the other team can't do anything about it. The creeps actually push up to Earthshaker's tower every time.
They did that already. Right? The only difference is now you can't pull them to the ancients because they try to take that path.
Well,
so,
but on that same point, Earthshaker wouldn't be able to get any. Like he'd have to move with those creeps at the same time. Well, I guess it depends on the laning situation, but. So you don't think this changes anything for him as an offlaner if he was actually put in the offlane?
I'm just trying to think of a situation where it's beneficial for you that the creeps stand still. Because if you want to bring up the example from the offlane, if you block the lane off and the creeps stand there, the enemy creeps are going to reach your tower and you can get experience there. Beforehand, maybe they would run to the ancients and die. That's even better for you because then the opponents don't get experience.
Right, but at the same time, you're pushing your lane harder now. No, before.
I guess
because you would have any creeps.
It's true. Maybe you can set up for some.
Like, what is an Earthshaker? Like, let's look at the last time. Let's say they were put in the offlane and they actually blocked off the creeps and they would go to the ancients, right? Like, what would you do as an Earthshaker? Let's just picture him as Dire.
Yeah.
You'd be sitting by your tower, or if you can get away with that, with all the enemy creeps attacking the tower, all the enemy heroes attacking your tower. Would you even be able to be in experience range if they actually just zone you out? As opposed to now, you'll actually have creeps against creeps, and you can actually just stand closer to your tower.
I feel like if that's what was desirable for you beforehand, you could still set that up in the previous version of Fissure, if you will, by fissuring at base, because then your creeps would just get delayed and eventually reach their wave.
Okay, but you couldn't do it consistently.
But you're right. I mean, I'm not going to say this is a nerf in every single aspect, but I feel like it's way more of a nerf than a buff. Because you can't do the pulling anymore. And this is for me, the only reason this is implemented is to stop the Fissure pulling. That's the only.
I think that just let me go on record as saying I think that all that's ridiculous. I don't know why you should be able to do any of that. I think that's kind of takes away from the game overall. So, but I'm interested to see what happens with this. I mean, I'm just theory crafting, obviously, so I have no idea. And Echo Slam going through Invisible Fog of War. I didn't know it didn't hit Fog of War. That's for sure. That's weird. That's really weird. But.
Yeah. Let me think. So what I'm wondering is if there were two different instances of it. One being the one where it counts the target, and another one where it deals the damage. So if that was the case... But yeah, I think you're right. You couldn't hit targets in Fog of War with Echo Slam. So obviously this is only a buff, because it only got better. And... yeah, it's not a huge buff, but it can make a difference sometimes that invisible targets. The main thing I'm thinking here is Lycan, actually, because the wolves are there. Maybe that's an additional 2 targets, because how often does the enemy team have multiple invisible units?
That's true.
Moonlight Shadow from Mirana.
So that would do 0 damage before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so with Moonlight, it's a good counter to Moonlight Shadow now. Now it actually works a lot better against that. I think that's the main thing. But to me, not the biggest of deals, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, come on, you're slamming the ground, and it's echoing. Because things are invisible doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah, so Ice Frog's just trying to make it realistic, basically.
Yes,
so that's great to see.
the goal here is to eventually make Dota 2 a game you can play outside.
I think, well, a first person, with first-person view and everything. Absolutely. I would love to be Earthshaker in that first-person view.
And think about, how would you make a fissure in real life? Like,
it's magic.
What would you throw? Come on, I'm trying to make it a real life. Okay. Move on.
Elder Titan, Echo Stomp mana reduced, Echo Stomp physical and magical damage increased. So
Yes.
this hero has been picked. It's not like it's super consistent anymore, but still a very powerful hero in his own right. What do you think of these changes?
I think that was his worst ability, and I think this is a good change.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised the damage values are as low as they are. I would have thought it would be buffed a little more on the damage than 5 per level. I would have thought 10 per level would make
Yeah, I mean, it's
sense.
so like the damage is. I mean, I guess if you take his aura into account, maybe it's not negligible, but it's not
It
much.
almost is, though. It's 5 damage.
Yeah.
Like, how much is that? I think, you know, the main thing is the mana cost reduction and the fact that this ability gets a little bit more love, because if you think of Elder Titan builds, he's usually built with Astral Spirit and the Aura, 4/4, before you even skilled the Stomp often.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
all
then
things
it's bad
considered
design of the
equal,
ability in a sense,
yeah,
right?
it is. I don't think it's a good ability at all. Like I don't think it's good at all. I mean, it has its merits. I mean, it's good to set up your ult if you can get it off. I think honestly, the main thing I would like change with this skill is like when you activate it, you can't stop it, and if you do, it actually goes on cooldown. I think it should be like any other, like let's say a fissure as an example. You can stop that mid animation and it doesn't go on cooldown. I would like to see that implemented because it is so difficult to set that up properly, you know?
But then again, you could really taunt your opponents. Like, you throw in an Astral Spirit, and then you keep making fake Echo Stomps, and they run around, and it
That
never
does
comes
sound
off.
pretty but yeah.
That
I
might be
would
too sick.
personally, I would love to see that, Synderen. Okay,
But
let's see it.
the main point, I guess, to make here is that, so since Echo Stomp wasn't really skilled before, and it's the same on level 1, I think this makes absolutely no difference for the build of Elder Titans.
Yeah, agreed.
So it just makes him a little better in mid-game in terms of mana economy, that Echo Stomp isn't so expensive, so you can use more Astral Spirits, I guess. That's the main change for me. The damage for me is as close to negligible as it gets.
It's a hard hero to balance though, just because of his aura. Honestly, it's very difficult.
I
But I
still
think,
think the only reason for me you really pick Elder Titan is the aura. That's everything about him.
yeah,
And of course, it's combined with the Astral Spirit that carries the aura. When you saw the last time I remember seeing it, it was actually the grand final of Starladder. DK picked it in the last game. And they picked Elder Titan in that game, first of all, because they have Ice Ice Ice, who's probably the best player in the world on this hero. And then they had a Pugna push strat, where the reason this is crazy with Pugna is that when the Astral Spirit is near the enemy targets, when they cast spells, the Nether Ward deals pure damage, right? So
hmm
every spell they cast with the Astral Spirit next to them deals pure damage instead of magic damage in terms of, you know what I mean?
I see. Yeah,
Unless if they have extra resistance, but
that's insane.
um, you get the point.
Yeah.
So it's still that you're going to pick it for, and that's
I don't
the
necessarily have a problem. Like, okay, why are you against? Like, why do you think it's a badly designed concept if only 3 abilities are good? Like, if the hero itself, like, I would say Elder Titan overall in the grand scheme of things is balanced. And
yes,
his first ability, I'm not gonna say it's useless, but it's not very good. I think we can agree on that. And I don't
it
have a
is.
problem with that because I mean, he's a balanced hero at the end
It
of
is
the day.
good. What I like to see the most, though, like this is just my personal preference, is that I think heroes are well designed, or for me, this is the ideal of a hero. But it doesn't happen all the time. But you know, for me, the best thing is if the hero give you the ability to be creative. Like there isn't one build you have to do, and at the same time also that there's not one build that's absolute garbage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, for example, when you're playing Lion, you can choose not to get mana drain because you really want to focus on the disables, or you can max mana drain because you want to stomp your opponent in lane. It's like with Elder Titan, there's absolutely no purpose in maxing the Echo Stomp first. There's
So
no
he's not a
reason you would ever do.
flexible. He's not flexible.
I'm not gonna say that it's a bad per se, but to me, I feel like every ability should be so good that you would definitely pick it once
hmm
before you level 6,
Right.
or not necessarily, but at least before you're like super high level.
Fair enough.
That's I feel like it's not so that you. How do I put this in the smartest way? You shouldn't be forced to taking an ability because it's too good to skip, but it also shouldn't be so bad that you don't even feel like getting it until high level.
Right.
And the best example I have of that is Wind Ranger's ultimate still, which is an ultimate ability, but it's the worst ability the hero has. To me, the problem about that is if you make that ability really good, she's imbalanced as hell because her other kid is sick. But then balancing it around to make that ultimate better without making it crazy, is, you know, that's the goal eventually, and that's also what's happening to Wind Ranger. Her ultimate has been changed a few times now, so
How dare you?
yeah, I guess
No, I understand what you're
that's.
saying. Yeah, I can see that.
I might have phrased that a little.
No. I think your point got
I guess
across.
you get my point overall.
But now we
So.
get to talk about your favorite Ember Spirit. His Searing Chain's duration has been reduced at the earlier levels, and Sleight of Fist bonus damage was nerfed. Now, this is a hero that everybody's been saying is arguably the best hero in the game, the most imbalanced hero in the game, and I think we all knew at the end of the day that the way that Ice Frog balances, he wasn't going to nerf the fact that you can Sleight of Fist from ridiculous range. At least that's how I felt. The range itself is what I find completely imbalanced, and I knew that they weren't going to touch it. You know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
I was like, what are they going to nerf about this guy? So what do you think this is enough?
I think what it comes down to for Ember Spirit is the identity of the hero, which is always what's preserved in every patch. That's what you were kind of getting at, is that the way the game gets balanced is never by removing the hero's strengths. You either, you know, he wants to always keep the identity. So you could say, wow, Ember Spirit's mobility is ridiculous. Nerf his mobility, please, because it's too good. If you do it that way, then eventually you end up streamlining the heroes so they get too similar to each other. And the goal is to keep them unique. And the theme for the spirits, Earth Spirit, Ember Spirit, and Storm Spirit, is that they're highly mobile. So you let them be that, and then you balance the other things around that mobility. And arguably, one of the most crazy things about Ember Spirit was his damage output on Sleight of Fist, because it's such a low cooldown on high levels, and the fact that you are so mobile, you also shouldn't be dealing that ridiculous amount of damage with that. And also, you could say Searing Chains was a too powerful level 1 ability. Many times you would see people skilling it on level 1 and then maxing the 2 other abilities. Now, because it's so bad on level 1, having 1 second duration, you're kind of forced into getting it. Once again, I don't want to say forced, because for me, this is a really good balance change. The way Searing Chains gets changed is that you can choose to get it because you feel like it's valuable and really good. You can also put 1 value point into it because it still stops TPs. It's a short route. It's not a must-have, but it's good and it's worth the choice, and you will generally see 1 point in it regardless. But now you can't just... If you do the build with 1 in chains, max Sleight of Fist, max Flame Guard, the chains are really weak, as they should be. It was kind of too sick on level 1 before. It sustains its damage, but it's a worse route on level 1 and level 3. So to get the 3 second, you need to max it now. So it actually got nerfed in 2 instances. I think this is a really good change. And the Sleight of Fist is kind of self-explanatory, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's good.
Alrighty. I think as far as late game's concerned, he's still going to be as powerful with the right items. But you still have to get to that point.
He needs to get there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Enchantress Untouchable duration has been increased by 1, so okay. I mean, honestly, it's actually an amazing skill, but you just don't prioritize that. You usually get like a value point or something like that in it, but I don't think much is going to change with
Sometimes
that.
you actually max that.
Okay.
It's not... It became more and more popular to do it when people realized how sick it actually was.
It's insane.
And so I'm wondering if this change is combined with the bug fix, if you will, of the way attack speed worked that we talked about in the beginning. Mm-hmm. If those two go hand in hand, or if that was just a way of improving Enchantress. I feel like, to me, Enchantress is one of those heroes that is really hard to change because it's just almost perfect the way it is. This is a hero that I generally don't see any reason to touch much. No pun intended, but...
Your puns have been just on point today.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. You're laughing so hard, I can tell.
I am.
This is one of the most minor things for me. I'm not sure what the logic is, but I think it's fine. The next one is big, though.
Yeah, Midnight Pulse for Enigma, which is one... Okay, that's a top 3 that I've had. That's the second one I've said. Top 3 underrated skills in the game. The area has been increased by 200. The range was increased not too long ago. The Aghanim Scepter for Enigma gives you basically 2 Midnight Pulses if you use it correctly. So I'm going to say I think it's an amazing skill. But as far as the hero is concerned, I still, I don't see him placing... I don't see him blinking in, placing a Midnight Pulse, and then ulting. It's just not feasible.
That's also not what this change does, because if that's what you want to do, the previous Midnight Pulse AoE was big enough. If you landed your combo beforehand, everyone would be inside the Midnight Pulse and the Black Hole. This is for sieging the base, right? Because The fact is, this ability actually deals really significant damage, and it's universal damage. It goes through everything. It goes through BKB even, which I think is something a lot of people don't think about. But this ability is uncounterable in terms of the damage, unless if the pipe still blocks it, which I think it does, which it apparently didn't for Doom, or something like that. I was confused. But on level 4, this ability does 7% of the max life of the target per second. So if you think about a late game scenario, how much damage that is, let's say many heroes in late game have 3,000 health, right? Or 2,500. That's a 250 damage per second, roughly. A little less, maybe. Now, when that has a radius of 600, it's a lot easier to land it during sieges, and if enemy teams are forced to fight you, they're fighting inside the pulse. It's absolutely huge.
Back in
It's also better for Roche pit fights, better for team fights in general.
yeah.
But I think
Well,
mainly base sieging
if
is
you're
where
for base siege, I can see that for sure. I mean, I remember in Dota, the original Dota, I used to, because I was a really cool guy and all, I used to get a Radiance on Enigma,
Oh yeah,
and
that
I'd
was
blink
core.
in, and of course, since I'm playing as terrible people, I didn't have the black hole right away. I can put down the Midnight Pulse and then ulti and get a Rampage because the damage is insane, like you're talking about. And the Midnight Pulse is infinitely better than at that point, so yeah,
Yeah, it's so
potential's
good
there.
now. I think this is a really big change. I think many people will underestimate how important this ability will be now. It's still going to be your third choice. You're still going to max the two others first, but this is definitely an ability that's very valuable. And now, so with what I was saying before, if you remember, I was saying, for example, Echo Stomp was an ability that was often bypassed and not got really early at all. Enigma is the same type of hero where you would get Maleficent conversion maxed first, and then you would consider Midnight Pulse. Sometimes you would even get stats over it in some games. Now, to me, this might actually be worth getting before the two other abilities are maxed in some cases, because now it's so significant. And even on level 1, the damage is really good. It's 4% of the target's max health per second for 8 seconds. It's a zoning ability. It creates an area that the enemy team can't fight in.
Yeah,
Now,
that's true. Even bigger zoning now. Yeah.
maybe, Malefice is still an insane ability and so are the conversions, but I think in some cases you might not want to max out the conversions necessarily, but focus more on the Midnight Pulse now. I think it's a great change. It makes it a lot better.
Faceless Void. Base agility's been increased by 2. Turn rate improved. And I think that's a bigger deal for when he's trying to time walk away backwards. Am I mistaken?
So
Like just turning around to be able to do that?
I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding, but turn rate improved is a buff, right? It makes you turn
Yes.
faster. Okay.
Yes.
So I think this is mainly aimed at his ability to move around inside his own chronosphere, where he's super fast at moving, but he's not so fast at turning.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And now he's really quick at moving from one target to the next. And you're right. For everything else, of course, I mean, turn rate is one of those factors in the game that are always important, because in every scenario you will want to turn your hero for something. You want to hit someone, you want to cast a spell. This is a great buff, actually. I'm not sure how exactly these values work, actually, but I can just see that the change in value should be really significant here. I'll have to feel it in the game first to really know how big of a change it is, but this is definitely good. And Void is one of those heroes that's been getting a little more love lately because he's so rarely picked. Although he's one of the old school core carries, so it's great to see him
picked
being
more lately, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, but yeah.
a little bit.
Okay, next, and this is an interesting one, Gyrocopter. So, homing missile now hits invisible units, which is really annoying for Gyrocopter because, well,
Yep.
you can just go invis and dodge it every single time. And
Yep.
it also requires more hits to be destroyed. So, I want to talk about Gyro in general. I hope I don't get off on too big of a tangent. We're talking about how heroes are designed and how some skills are more, like, you never pick up, and, well, you guys just listened to that. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So when I look at Gyrocopter pre this patch, his flat cannon and what's his first ability called?
Rocket Barrage.
Rocket Barrage are insanely good. Okay, homing missile was like people don't even get 1 point in it at this point. Like they just completely
Sometimes, yeah.
bypass it. So it's pretty much a dead skill. And then his ulti, which is
Dead
good.
skill.
It's good. It's a good ulti.
Dead
But
game.
I would say that his other two abilities are way better still, in the grand scheme of things.
I feel like the pattern here is what I was talking about, that they're trying to buff abilities that are just undervalued are not necessarily undervalued, but that are not bad abilities, but that are, in comparison to the other skills, too weak to skill. You would see gyro carries sometimes not getting homing missile at all, and you will see most gyro carriers will get 1 point. So it's a value point just for the stun, because the stun scaling isn't that good. It's a very slow traveling projectile until it has traveled for a long time, and then there was the other things about it. Didn't hit invisible units. It was too easy to destroy on the higher levels. Now there's another reason to level it up is that on level 4, it's actually really hard to hit this missile 5 times. You would usually be able to hit it the 3 times, but 2 extra hits makes a huge difference. And the only reason this is done is to make that... it's not to buff Gyro as a whole, I feel like. It's more to make that ability more desirable to even skill. And I think this is a great change for Gyro. To me, it's also a hero that's pretty balanced overall.
Yeah. Well, that's
and
exactly what I'm
unique.
saying. Like, even with a dead skill, he's balanced. So,
yeah.
You know.
So now the danger is to make homing missile too good, but I don't think that happened here. I think this is great. And I want to point out one last thing about homing missile, is that Gyro, when it comes to split pushing, a lot of heroes get Shadow Blade, which homing missile is now actually useful against. Because if you cast that homing missile and you're able to track them down, then they can't just Shadow Blade TP anymore. Then your missile will hit, then you call down.
Yeah,
then you take the call down.
Keep in mind that when you upgrade the homing missile, it does a lot of damage. I can't look at it right now. I think it's like 440 damage. Last I looked, which is pretty freaking good considering in a lot, like if it's a 1v1 situation, it's almost guaranteed to hit them at some point. Yeah. Because they're not going to hit it 5 times. Anyway, moving on. Huskar, I want to talk to you about this. So Burning Spear is no longer a unique attack modifier. Does this mean, I'm assuming it does, that he can just use Lifesteal with his Burning Spears on?
That was one of the biggest problems for the hero, was that you'd have to choose between stealing life and doing Burning Spears damage. And the reason this was terrible was that in the early game, Burning Spears were really good, and then in the late game, the damage just falls off, and you want to have Lifesteal. Now you keep it. This is a huge buff, because it's not that it changes the way you would generally build Huskar, but it allows you to keep using Burning Spears, which is, this is great. I feel like that's one of the abilities that it didn't really necessarily make too much sense, was a unique attack modifier, perhaps so. I love this change. I think it's good.
Invoker, Ghost Walk Slow no longer affects magic immune enemies, which was insane before. And the EMP, which everybody's been complaining about, which is arguably his most... I guess it was buffed the most last patch. The delay has been increased from 2.6 to 2.9. So if you guys remember in the previous versions, this EMP delay would actually scale based on the levels of Wex and... I think it's just Wex, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. This is Wex
and then
only.
Then last patch, meaning 6.8, it was put to a static 2.6. And I think the lowest duration of the delay at any point was like 2.2 or something like that. Now it's 2.9.
You mean the lowest time for EMP to kick in?
Yeah, from before.
It was actually lower than 2.
Lower than 2.2? Okay.
It was really low at some point, but yeah.
Either way, this is obviously a nerf. Not a huge nerf, but decent nerf, I think. That's his easiest. Like all his skills, most of them take skill to use. EMP, one of the few that doesn't.
Yeah. So what most people were expecting as far as Invoker nerf would go was that many people were suggesting that EMP should drain mana based on the distance from the center of the explosion.
Yeah.
So that the closer you were to the center, the less mana, the more mana you lost. But I feel like that's a smart idea, but it's really hard to find out what the values should be, and might also be, I don't know. I could agree with that change, but I think what most people were imagining, it will be too weak of an ability. And I know that might sound crazy because people are like EMP, OP. But the way this is supposed to work as an ability is that this is a pulse. You need to get the hell out of there or you get punished. So if you want to work around playing against EMP, you need heroes with movement. Now, this extra 0.3 seconds, I think the main part about this is that it's harder to set up the combo with Tornado into EMP. Because after you land from the Tornado, you'll have more time to blink or to Force Staff or, all these things that will disallow you from landing that combo unless you get really high points in Quas, so the lift time on Tornado is long. So this means that this classic combo is harder to land and it requires more Quas, so it's less good for Exort Invokers now. I think this is a really smart way of doing it. And again, keeping the identity of the hero. You don't want to nerf EMP into the ground suddenly because it's too good. this is the hero's craziest ability with the Wex build. If EMP wasn't good, you would never get Wex. So you can't just remove that ability's strength. Now you need to play around it. That's always how it's been, and that's still how it is. And Invoker is still countered completely by BKB, so
Yep.
that's still the way to go.
Jakiro, dual breath, range increased by 50, liquid fire. Level 4, cooldown reduced a bit, which is, now that I read, that's insane. It was so good before, and it's even better now. Aghanim Scepter for Macropyre is, I mean, I don't know why this, like, how are you gonna put somebody, like, get somebody, I guess, RP and then something else, a Tidehunter ult on top of it. 14-second duration.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Good luck pushing into Macropyre.
That's true. So that's what I don't understand. Like they're promoting all this pushing and then all this turtling at the same time. And I guess if you keep it balanced, it's fine. But like if somebody actually manages to get Jakiro or an Aghanim Scepter on Jakiro, that is really tough to push in.
I think this change is pretty crazy. I feel like beforehand, Aghanims on Jakiro wasn't good enough in a sense. It made the cast, or it made the wave expand, or how do you say that? Yeah, it expanded instantly, right? So the moment you did the cast point, the flames were everywhere. Whereas without the Ag Scepter, it has to travel first. So to me, the more important thing about this is not the range, but more about the duration, because I think the most important thing is how this can allow you to hold objectives. It can defend Roshan or take over Roshan. It can hold the base, and it can push the base too. Since this it goes in line with the Midnight Pulse idea of being able to set a battlefield and zone opponents out of it. This is huge, I think. And this could give Jakiro a comeback. I think all these heroes combined, again, this hero might not have been too bad beforehand, but people need to see the buffs to start using the hero
honestly,
again.
I think the dual breath range and the liquid fire cooldown ruse are bigger deals.
Of course, because Ags isn't generally picked up by Jakiro. But now we had the position 4 argument with Abaddon.
Yeah.
I feel like if you have a position 4 Jakiro who has 4k gold, I would get Ag Scepter over other things now, because I think this is a huge zone control ability.
That would be fun to see. 14-second fire, you know? It's good
Yeah,
for
for
FPS.
1800 range. Like,
yeah.
If this is like the type of hero that you simply will struggle to fight into without a BKB now. It was hard before, now it's completely insane. That's great, because that's what the hero is about. So it speaks to its strengths, and I like this idea.
Okay, Juggernaut base attack time improved from 1.6 to 1.5. I don't want to talk about this too much, but I wouldn't sleep on this at the same time. I believe the default is 1.7, so that's actually considerably quicker as far as attack speed goes. For somebody that relies on critical strikes, and it helps his ultimate as well, because remember, he still attacks during his ultimate if his attack speed's fast enough.
This is a good buff.
I like that. Okay, so Keeper of the Light. This is one of the coolest ones. Aghanim Scepter upgrade, which he never had before. It gives him permanent spirit form, which is just by itself ridiculous. But hey, on top of that, during the daytime, you will gain unobstructed vision, and Illuminate will heal allies for 75% of the damage values.
I actually missed the spirit form part. I hadn't seen that. I saw the other two things when I read it the first time.
The other two are very good in their own right, and then, I don't know, this is insane. This is like one of the best Aghanims upgrades by far.
I would agree. This is huge. Because, so here's the thing that's really the craziest about it, is that I thought it worked so that, like I said, that the spirit form part wasn't there, right? So it wasn't permanent. So that you would have to cast spirit form, and then you got these Ags upgrades. But the fact that this is permanent means that when Keeper of the Light has an Ags, he has constant 1800 AoE vision during the entire day, in the same way that Night Stalker has it during the night with an Ags.
So Night Stalker's kind of, I guess I wouldn't call him a counter, but a hilarious counter. I don't know what to call it.
These two have. That's also great, because that's kind of. I think people were missing that from Keeper of the Light. That it's great that he has these light effects, but where is the thing that in all sorts of lore and stories, a Keeper of the Light would be someone who gives you vision in the dark, right? And this is finally kind of there. He doesn't give vision during the night.
Wasn't there I'm trying to think of the counter to Night Stalker. Not the counter, but the counter part to Night Stalker was Treant Protector for a while. I could be wrong because I was not playing Dota at that time, but with his
I don't know.
vision on the trees, something with daytime, I don't know. Maybe somebody in the
Yeah, there
tell us
were.
in the
He could
comments.
use owls on the trees at some point.
Yeah.
He could make trees at some point too that had vision.
Yeah. Okay.
I would agree with you. I think this is one of the best Ags upgrades in the game.
And the funny thing is, he of all the supports, he has the easiest time farming. So I think this is very feasible.
I think this brings the hero back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call him as, I won't say one of the most picked supports, but he's gonna get picked again. He's almost never picked anymore.
Yeah.
This is crazy, and this hero with the jungle only can probably get this item not too long into the game while still supporting. And this is huge. I think this might be the first thing. I don't know really. I have a hard time determining this before I see it in play, but this is the first thing so far where I'm like, this might be too good. But I don't know.
Well,
sure.
I think the provides permanent spirit form by itself would have been good enough, to be honest.
So that's what I didn't think was there when I was like, this is great. And now that it's permanent, I'm like, holy shit, this is good.
Like if you saw that by itself, would that be good enough for you? Like forget
just
about
that it's permanent without anything
forget about
else?
the healing, forget about the vision.
No, then it's not good enough.
Really?
So
okay.
How does spirit form work? Let me see. I need to see the. So the duration on level 3 is 40 seconds, and the cooldown is 60.
So 20-second downtime.
20-second downtime.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's not really a good enough upgrade.
Okay.
I think.
That's true.
But
okay. Yeah.
Because when you think about it, the 40-second duration, you would usually use this when a fight starts. Not many fights last longer than 40 seconds. But now you can use it to port heroes across the map whenever you feel like. You can set up for healing as well as damage. Like, this Illuminate thing is a huge deal. Like, it deals 500 damage, right? On full channel level 4. That's a 375 heal.
Yeah,
that's 1.5 mech.
Yeah, I don't see how this is balanced, but I've been wrong before, so...
I just, if it turns out it's too good, this is one of the things you have to see. If it turns out it's too good, the values will get nerfed, but the idea will be kept, which I think is the bigger part. That I think this is so cool. One of my favorite changes in the patch, actually, but a little uncertain. We'll have to see. I can't really determine yet.
For Kunkka, Torrent, area of effect has been increased just a bit. The X marks the spot can now last twice as long on allied heroes, which we'll talk about that more than anything else probably. Actually, maybe the Ghost Shipped. The allied buff, which is what we talked about so much during our tournament, or I did at least, duration has been increased by 2, which I think is huge. And I don't know what the add ghost ship AoE indicator for allies, what does that mean? Just showing where the ship's going to land?
It already does that with the X on the ground. I think it shows where you get the buff when the ship sails past or something like that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm
Okay,
not
yeah,
sure.
that's a little bit uncertain before. So
or maybe it is the AoE of the explosion, so instead of just the X on the ground, it shows the circle of exactly where everyone is going to get hit.
Okay.
I have to see that first.
All right. So the X marks the spot. Talk about the impact of this, because the first thing that popped in my mind was if you have a rapier or something and you X marks yourself, you have potentially 8 seconds to just go beat the crap out of people, and then like a guaranteed way to get back to safety, kind of thing.
Unless you get stunned, then you can't trigger it. But
no,
then someone else in your team.
It'll auto trigger though.
Yeah, the thing is, it auto triggers after 8 seconds. So
well, that's what I mean. Like you have 8-second period where you're.
Sure, but if you get X and killed, then it doesn't matter. You return to your X.
Sure.
I think this is more of a thing. Oh, it says on allied heroes. I guess it's also Kunkka himself, but it actually doesn't say that.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like this is more of a setup for teammates than for himself, because it allows you to do tricky plays with TPs, for example, where since it's 8 seconds, you might be able to, let's say, you have Boots of Travel on a hero. And right before he ports somewhere, you X him, then he has 8 seconds in the target area to do something before he gets pulled back.
Okay.
So this is kind of a potential split pushing strategy, which might sound gimmicky, but could really be very useful.
I think it could be really good, because you could go in, let's say you have an 8-second period to figure out if you want to push this tower down, and if you could do more, like potentially, theoretically, pop your BKB to cancel the X and continue on, as opposed to
it gives
always
some flexibility that
yeah.
I think is cool.
That's pretty. I mean, I'm sure all the rat Dota people are going to hate this change, but that it could bring up some cool things, I think, for sure.
So I don't know if I want to say the funny or the weird thing about it is the whole rat Dota thing, that it's become common consensus that playing split push is stupid or lame.
It's fun to watch, I think.
I think someone had a really good point. He was like, the game is called Defense of the Ancients, not Killing of the Heroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any strategy that allows you to make it harder for the enemy to defend is what the game is about. Killing heroes is what leads you to sieging the base. And if you can bypass that by split pushing, it's a completely viable
Well, that's
strategy.
kind
Now,
of the
I'm not
same.
saying it's not frustrating to play against. It's fucking frustrating
Yeah,
sometimes
but
playing against
I
split
think a
pushing.
lot of
But
viewers hate on it, even though I think it's way more fun to watch, actually. Like, remember the days when people were complaining about the Chinese farming all day, like Spectre versus Anti-Mage is like a 65-minute game average, and all they're
yeah,
doing is farming for the first 40 minutes. And now, like the 4 Protect 1 strat or whatever, but now they're complaining about the rat. Not to get off another tangent, but now they're complaining about Rat Dota, where it's actually enjoyable to watch. Maybe it's annoying to play against, and I know that,
it is.
but
It's
you're
very
not playing
frustrating to
against
play
it. You're
against.
watching it. So
If you struggle with it and if you have trouble playing against it, you draft against it, you strategize. If you
yeah,
lose to split pushing, you have lost strategically. It's just, how is it any different to lose to split pushing than to lose to team fight because you haven't picked any AoE abilities? It's your own fault at the end of the day.
yeah.
That's the competitive point of view. Now, the point of view about pubs is another story where you're like, damn, split pushing is just stupid some games because people will generally not have as good drafts, especially if it's all pick. They might not be as good at playing together because defeating a split push lineup is so much about team coordination, which you might not have. So, from the casual point of view, it might be really stupid, but in terms of competitive play, I just have to say this is a really important part of the game.
Hmm.
And if you remove that ability, if you will, if you make it harder to split push, then you're going to see other strategies emerge that you will then find more boring after a short while. If it's incredibly hard to push the base, then it becomes really farm oriented again, like you said. So yeah,
Anyway,
that's how it is.
moving on,
That
and
was a tangent.
I wanted to quickly say that the Ghost Ship buff duration, or the buff in general, is my favorite buff in the game. It's so good. It's unbelievably good, and it's been buffed even more, which I don't understand why, but I'm not complaining. It's still really good. Legion Commander, overwhelming odds, bonus damage per hero is increased. A lot, by the way. The
Yeah.
same skill, the area of effect has been increased. The base damage rescale there, as you can see, has been nerfed a little bit at the later levels. And kind of the theme of the patch, pseudo random chance for the moment of
Oh
courage
man,
now.
I'm gonna
So
start playing Legion Commander jungle again now.
yeah,
This
so
was
more
bothering me so
consistent
much.
procs.
Like,
I remember you
this is
complaining
so
about
good.
this. Yeah.
This is so good. Like, for me, I wouldn't say every ability, but I'm getting close to a point where I feel like the more of these chance-based abilities are pseudo-random, the better. I'm a really big fan of pseudo-random. A friend of mine and I had a discussion. He's like, pseudo-random is stupid. I want everything to be true random. It's chance is part of the game.
Hmm.
But there's just some things where if you make it true random, then it's just too much, right? I think there are still some abilities that are true random where maybe you could say it makes sense. Backtrack is true random, I believe. And the thing is, if you make backtrack pseudo random, then that ability suddenly gets really bad because if you block some really insignificant damage sources, you can't block the big ones afterwards.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's an ability where I feel like true random makes a lot of sense, whereas bashes and moment of courage really makes a lot of sense to have pseudo random. So yeah, overwhelming odds, really sick damage increase. And again, this is, I feel like it's the same record as we've talked about previously on many other heroes. Legion Commander was one of those heroes where you might even skip overwhelming odds early on, or you might only put 1 point into it just for the speed increase and a little bit of anti-push. Now it's really good on higher levels. You really want a level.
I just want her in CM unless she is now. I don't think she is. I want her in
And this
CM
buffs
by TI4.
this buffs her a hell of a lot in terms of teamfight potential, which was the hero's weakness, is that it only goes on one target. Overwhelming odds AoE now in teamfights is not to be underestimated. Let's see, base damage is 180 on level 4, and then 65 extra per hero. So if you have like 3 heroes in this AoE, all of them take about 400 damage.
Yeah,
If
and
there is
for
a
the people that maybe didn't see the question mark, it's the same for creeps that it was
yeah,
before. But still, quite a big buff overall for sure. And
I think this is cool.
I would
Still, the
just
pseudo random is most important for me.
okay,
Love it.
fair enough, fair enough. Exciting hero, I think, to watch. At least something new. I would enjoy watching her for sure. Lesh Lightning Storm slows its targets by 75% for half a second. Um, that's kind of he's so all his skills are so good. Like I know people probably I don't
It's
know they've kind of been getting Lightning Storm a bit now, I guess. Um, It seems
Um,
really good to me.
it's like Lesh is one of those or this is one of those changes where like, why? But
Hmm.
then when you think a little bit about it, it makes a lot more sense. So the thing is, Leshrac hitting his stun is really difficult, and this in some scenarios will allow it to be easier because this 75% slow, even if it's just half a second, you get time to maybe land your stun in combination with Lightning Storm. So that's one thing. The other is with Lightning Storm's cooldown reduced, this allows Leshrac to chase to some extent, and also when you're doing Edict on the hero, you're running next to your target. And the problem is you can't cast Lightning Storm because then they get out of range of the Edict. Now you get the chance to hit Lightning Storm
Hmm.
and catch up again.
I remember the argument for not
So
getting
makes
Lightning
sense.
Storm back in the day was you're so Leshrac is so reliant on positioning that you're right. Stopping to use Lightning Storm kind of ruins Split Earth in a lot of ways, ruins Diabolic Edict and Pulse Nova even more, and
Yeah,
this kind of counteracts us like you're saying. So,
makes a lot of sense. Cool change. Okay.
Lich Frost Armor can now be cast on buildings. Good lord. Aghanim Scepter
That's
Chain Frost no longer has a bounce limit. Good lord. Although that one's probably less of a big deal because not only do you not see Aghanim Scepter very often, but most of the times you don't get good bounces on Lich Ult anyway.
so I have this idea of a lineup with Lich, Treant, and Jakiro, and then they hold a lane together. So you get Axe and Jakiro, and Lich keeps frost armoring the tower, and then when the Macropyre is down and you clear the creep wave, then you heal the tower, and then when the enemy tries to siege, they all get slowed by hitting the tower.
Yeah.
And then Macropyre's off cooldown again, and you heal your tower.
I really like the Frost Armor change a lot. It's pretty
I
cool.
I think this ability is still underrated.
Yeah.
In competitive play as well, not just in pubs where people are like, why should I? Like,
Hey,
I don't
now
know how
there's
many games I see Lich not spamming Frost Armor on every single ally. You do that. You keep casting it on everyone and keep cycling it, and then you get mana from sacrificing a creep.
the important
His
thing to note
abilities.
here is that the creep that gives Frost Armor, there's now an actual difference between the two skills.
Yeah, that's true. The
Unless
armor
this
values were
counts
also different.
right. Wait, what?
The armor values were different.
Are you sure?
The creep gives 8 armor always. Lich's scales 3, 5, 7, 9.
Okay.
And
Slightly
the
different
slow
then.
from that is also different. I think the melee ice armor, or sorry, the ogre's ice armor did not work on ranged targets like Lich's does. I think.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
So you're right. They're even more different. 2 patches ago, they were almost identical. That's very true.
All right, so this one's a very cool change. So Lina attack range has been increased. I never thought that was a problem. I mean, 670 is pretty insane range, and her Aghanim Scepter Laguna Blade ulti goes through magic immunity. My God, man, it's a good. I like these changes. Oh, well, the
This is a
attack
good way
range
of
I don't
thinking
understand why,
about it.
but yeah,
But it's only Ag's Laguna though. It's not Laguna Blade in general.
right,
That
right.
would be huge if it was, but I still like this. I want to quickly backtrack to Lich because I saw a clip today that made me laugh
The
about
ancients.
what you can do with Ag's Scepter.
Yeah,
The Ancients clip. You saw it too, yeah?
yeah.
So since this stacks indefinitely or doesn't have a bounce limit, when you have Ags on Lich, you can start chain frosting the Ancient Camp and it just keeps bouncing there forever. And then if you do that a couple of times, the enemy team can't farm their Ancients because when they go there, they get hit by 3 or 4 chain frosts at once
That's a
that you've
bug,
stacked up.
man. That is a bug.
It's so awesome.
It's a freaking bug.
It's probably going to get changed, but I think it's absolutely
Although I
hilarious.
will mention, now that I think about it, if you use this in like a team fight, and there's creeps, it matters a little bit less because the creeps will die and then it'll still bounce. It won't be
Yes.
like the bounce is being used. It's not necessarily a loss for you. So
It's
that
still
could
Ag Scepter
potentially be a
only.
big deal. Right, right.
But yeah,
Okay, Lena, do we need to go over anything else? I don't
I
think
think
so.
we're good on that.
Okay, Lion Hex cooldown. I don't know why. This is like an amazing ability, but I guess he's never played. I'm not sure if this really
Oh, he is.
changes
He is
much.
definitely played.
Really?
I. It's mainly.
It's more Rasta than Lion. Like for the Blink Hex, that's like
It's
the
not
main thing.
really a big change. The values aren't that big tweaks. Again, it's one of those like penitents where can you get 2 or 1 off in the fight? 12 seconds
Yeah.
instead of 15 is actually quite important. And I also think it's a way of compensating for the fact that we'll get to that a little bit later. That Hex, the item, gets nerfed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it's a way of making the hero hexes even more different from, or even more desirable, I guess you could say, than the hex item.
Hmm.
Where beforehand you were like, oh, we don't have Lion, it's okay, we just build a hex. Now, now he has even less cooldown on his Hex, so it's even better than Scythe already, and we get to why Scythe is worse as well.
Right.
So I think those two things kind of go hand in hand.
Okay. Lone Druid, Spirit Bearer, okay. Good buff, don't need to talk about it, I don't think. Laguna, or Laguna? Luna the Laguna, base agility has been reduced by 4. Okay, she's been played in like every single game, so I'm fine with that. Not much to talk about, obviously. Lycan, which was considered, along with Ember, one of the most Imba heroes in the game. Shapeshift, and this is cool. It doesn't necessarily take away from what he's already good at, but Shapeshift no longer gives the bonus HP, which is definitely a nerf, and potentially will force, maybe not force them, but perhaps get an earlier BKB, or even a heart at some point, which is something you don't really see on Lycan very often.
So the thing that's really good about this change is, like you said, again, it keeps the hero's identity, which is an amazing split pusher and high physical damage dealer, and also the global presence with Howl. But it nerfs him in a way that makes him the same, but makes him weaker overall in pretty much every single aspect of the game. You're a weaker split pusher because if you get caught, you don't have the extra health that sometimes keeps you alive. You're worse at team fighting. You're worse at ganking because you can get caught and killed. But you're still a good split pusher. And then there are other things about Lycan that get nerfed, but that's in the items. We'll get to that later on.
Okay. Magnus removes skewer maximum target limit, which I'm not sure why they ever had a limit for that, but good to see that changed. And the range has been increased. So we don't need to talk about that too much, but it's a good buff overall to Magnus. Unless you wanted to talk about it.
Especially really good on level 1. So the way it's been rescaled is that it's 150 longer on level 1, 100 on level 2, 50 on level 3, and the same on level 4. So it's mainly level 1 this benefits, which is interesting because you see a lot of Magnus First Bloods where you stun a target and skewer him. The way you can do it now is you can skewer really far. So I think that's very interesting.
Unfortunately, he was nerfed in an indirect way with Wisp, but we'll get to that a little later. Medusa, Split Shot, which is one of those skills you just don't, well, another hero you can just never play, but a skill you don't really get until much later in the game, has been reworked. Instead of dealing a different amount of damage for each level for 5 maximum targets, it's not the same amount of damage, which is 80%, but to a certain amount of targets that scales, which I think
she is so much better at jungling now. Yeah, much faster, and can do it earlier.
So, and Mystic Snake no longer requires Fog of War vision to bounce, and the Mana Shield damage absorption has been increased a bit, so some buffs.
On the lower levels, it's the same on level 4.
Okay, yeah.
It's really good on level 1. Wow, that's a lot of improvement. It's more than 50% buff. It's pretty sick when you think about it.
Yeah.
So again, the same old story. Split Shot was sometimes not even picked up early on. Now it's like just getting 1 or 2 points in this makes a lot of sense now instead of skipping it entirely until late game. Because having 80% damage to 3 targets, then you can jungle a lot faster. You can push lanes a lot easier and faster without having to invest all 4 points into getting significant damage. I think it's a great change. Oh god, does Meepo get buffed again?
You didn't
Seriously?
See this? 10 movement speed to Meepo. Congratulations.
Yeah. That's really not insignificant.
Oh, I'm not saying it's insignificant. 10. I can't remember the last time I've seen somebody's movement speed increased by 10. So.
Yeah, instead of 5. This is huge. This allows him to catch up very easily in lane, and once he gets the first hit on Geo Strike, you're pretty much screwed. That's how it usually is.
People want.
I'm not going to argue against Meepo buffs, but I still feel like this hero has been buffed so much over the last versions that I don't feel like he necessarily needs any love right now compared to other heroes in that regard. But it's okay. I'm not going to argue with this change making him imbalanced or anything. It's kind of hard to. Meepo is like the hardest hero in the game to balance. I think it's so difficult.
Okay, Mirana, Sacred Air of Vision has been reduced a bit. Not a big deal. I actually want to talk about something hilarious. So I've been watching a lot of competitive VODs and whatnot, as you would know. And a little acronym that I came up with to remember the heroes that are most valued was Neil is bad. So it's NEILB. So Naga, Ember, Invoker, Lycan, Batrider. And all those heroes got nerfed. So Naga is what reminded me of that. Mirror Image, illusion damage has been reduced by 10% at all levels. Riptide, awesome. Area of effect has been reduced as well, and it no longer gives the negative armor debuff through magic immunity. So not nerfs all around.
The hugest change is the top one. That 10% damage reduction on all levels on illusion damage is huge, but I also think it was needed. So this doesn't remove Naga's potential as a carry. It just makes her... It's still the same hero. It's just, the farming rate, for example, is reduced significantly by this because you can still Riptide with them, which is great. It still farms the creeps, but the illusions need to work harder on clearing the camps. So it reduces her GPM overall. And on top of that, the Riptide negative armor not going through magic immunity makes a lot of sense. I mean, why would it when you think about it? It's a magic ability. So I think this is a good way of changing the hero. And again, it does not remove the hero's identity. There's one thing I still desire for Naga, one thing, but I think the reason they're eluding that is that they feel like it's a big part of the appeal of the hero. I want Song of the Siren to work on Roshan, but I'm not getting that right now because I think the idea is
on
that
towers and everything else. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it works on everything else in the game than Roshan.
Too easy to steal the Aegis as well. Yeah.
I guess perhaps if it worked on Roshan, then you couldn't do the Roshan snipes, but maybe that's also one of the cool things about the hero is that when Naga's in the game, you need to keep that in mind, and it's one of the things she does. So I personally think that's a bit crazy that you can steal Rosh that way, but it makes for some awesome plays as well. So I guess, from a spectator point of view, it's also really cool that it doesn't sleep Roshan.
Necrophos, Heartstopper ore has been increased a bit. Reaper's Scythe now adds 30% duration to the respawn timer. So the first time I read that, I thought that was for the Aghanims, but that is for normal kills with his ult. Very cool. They're just going more and more in this path for Necrophos, which is weird to say, by the way. Messing with like the respawn timers and buying back and stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Don't think it changes anything though.
No, this hero is still dead to me.
I think his pulse, is it Pulse Nova? Is that what it's called?
No, that's Leshrax's ultimate. Death Pulse, you mean?
Death Pulse. It needs, I think the projectiles are just too slow, I think. They just need to speed up.
I think, didn't they get a little bit of speed and more range in the last version?
If they did, it still didn't make a difference, so I don't know, maybe, yeah, it's possible.
It's also a matter of incorporating him. This hero is one of the most restrictive heroes in the games, I feel, with how you need to build a lineup around him. And it can work. The crazy thing about this Heartstopper aura is how big that range is in terms of laning potential. Yeah. 1200 range means you're playing you against another 600 range hero. If you guys can hit the same creep, he's under Heartstopper aura. It's pretty sick.
It is.
But I don't know, it's still not enough for me. And while all those things with the ultimate are cute, to me it doesn't address the problem that the hero really has in terms of becoming more useful, which you kind of already mentioned with Death Pulse and how farm dependent he is and how little he gives back until he gets really farmed.
Right.
So he was actually only picked once in our tournament, I think, the Captain's Draft Invitational, and he lost that game, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't memorable, that's for sure.
It's like, yeah.
Night Stalker, darkness now affects buildings. Does this change, like, is that for like barracks and stuff? Because I know it's not, they don't mean towers. Because that was already affected. I thought they were already affected, yeah.
So if towers, I'm actually...
Wait, is that with Aghanims? Oh, this is, okay. So the patch when they did this, it was for Aghanims, and now it's normal.
Do you mean right? It's for, what? No, I don't think, like, the Ags all just, correct me if I'm wrong, the Ags all just makes you...
No, yeah, I think you're right.
Have map hack in 1800 AoE, right? So I don't think... Did it reduce the vision of buildings before? I'm kind of shocked. I am not sure about this, but you're making me doubt it. I thought it did.
No, you're probably right. I think you're right.
And then now that it reduces the vision of buildings, it makes it a lot easier for Night Stalker to get around towers, to make dives and make plays.
But that's the thing. It was already doing that. It was already reducing the vision on towers, I believe.
Aren't you just thinking of the fact that you turned day to night and then the towers lost their day vision?
I don't know.
I am really not sure. I could be wrong. Oh.
Okay, well,
it's kind of weird.
Just move on and just forget all about it.
Now we definitely know what it does, and it's for all buildings. So.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Nyx Assassin Impale cooldown increased a bit, and it no longer is blocked by Lincoln Sphere, which makes sense because it's not targetable anymore. So, okay. Yep. Ogre Magi, base armor increased by 1, cast animation improved a smidgen, actually a really random amount. That's why.
No, what was random was his previous cast animation.
Yeah, okay.
0.56.
Very exact.
This is actually pretty big for him because, again, one of the weaknesses of Ogre Magi was that he has a big cast time, and now that the animation is faster, it's easier for you to be able to get that stun off before the BKB. It's easier to stun a target fog, etc.
It's the old shuffleboard animation is what his issue was. So it's going to be a little bit faster. It's good.
It's good.
Omni-Knight Purification Area of Effect has been increased by a smidgen again. Repel no longer removes positive buffs from allies, which is
That's
nice in
huge.
case you, you know, I don't know why I ever did that to begin with, to be honest. Guardian Angel duration increased to 8 seconds at the highest level, and although this hero is not played very much, this Aghanim Scepter just seems ridiculous to me. 10-second ult. I mean,
So amazingly good, his ult. Like,
it's global, and it's 10 seconds. That's insane.
and it hits buildings.
Yeah.
Which
Insane.
means now with Egg Scepter, Omni-Knight's ultimate heals all towers 250. It makes them invulnerable to physical damage, and yeah, pretty legit. Also, if you didn't mouse over the question mark and Repel, this is important for Omni-Knight because previously you would have to cast Repel and then Guardian Angel. Now you can cast them in any order you want.
That's right. Yeah.
And the fact that it doesn't, I feel like it's cool that it doesn't remove positive buffs. I think this is the biggest change, is that it doesn't do that. Because there were many lineups in many games where you need to be careful with, oh, if I repel this guy, he loses, I don't know, different things like Bloodlust or whatever. You can think of a lot of different buffs.
Yeah. Although I'm not a big fan of this hero in general, just because I hate playing against him, it's I'm looking forward to solo Omni-Knight mid. That's what I want to see.
I still think he's undervalued. It's one of my favorite heroes.
Is that a top 3, Cinder?
I don't know. That wasn't the same list I did earlier, was it?
I don't remember. It's so
it was actually. Undervalued heroes. What did I have there? I had Beastmaster, and we had Brewmaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Omni-Knight could actually make my top 3.
So then you can't have another one past this. No. Although you said 5 in your top 3, so
I said 6.
You have room. Oh, okay. Phantom Assassin Stifling Dagger reduced by 2 seconds, and Blur Evasion chance increased, which they keep buffing over and over and over. It's insane. 50%.
50. Wow.
It's ridiculous.
This is a huge change. I think Loda in particular is going to be really happy about this.
Of course. Well, I think he stopped playing, if you remember, he stopped playing her, and I don't know if this is the reason, but I'm assuming it's so, when Armlet was nerfed.
Did he ever get Armlet on that hero?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I don't recall seeing it even once.
Okay.
But...
maybe I'm thinking of pubs. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, well... You're thinking of Loda as a pub. I guess he'll be really happy with that.
Phoenix, Icarus. Okay, this is another here that people are saying is completely and utterly and stupidly broken along with Terrorblade. Of course, they're not in CM, so it doesn't affect the competitive play at all. But Icarus Dive cast point extended. The Fire Spirit's damage, which I think is one of the bigger issues, although it hasn't been reduced by too much, only 5. I don't think it's kind of negligible. But the real big deal, I think, in my opinion at least, is the health cost increased by 5%.
Yeah, I think often when Phoenix is played in the lane, he gets Tranquils first anyway, so you heal up that health pretty fast, but it definitely does matter. I want to point out for the Fire Spirits, this ability is really weak on level 1 in terms of damage. It's mainly, on level 1 it's kind of only the attack speed slow, and even more so now. This is a terrible damage output it has on level 1, and I can't really argue with it, because Phoenix, it's one of those heroes that is just, in some games, absolutely crazy. If it's not countered, it's sick, and it beats some lanes just flat out. But I feel like a big part of the Phoenix hero, as is the case with others, is that people are just not aware of how to deal with it and counter it. And in pub games, even more so, because it's, we can't say competitive games because it's not even in there, but I think this hero is definitely very, very good, but it's not as good as people make it. But in some games, if you don't have reliable stun or reliable silence, this hero goes absolutely nuts. Who else does that? Ember Spirit, Storm Spirit, they kind of fall under the same category of heroes that have a sick mobility skill and then do tons of damage and can control the enemy team very well. So it's a hero you need to counterpick, and it still is. Even after these nerfs, I still think this hero is completely sick in the right lineup, but obviously less good in the wrong lineup. So.
Pugna, Decrepify mana reduced, and Netherward duration increased. He's already played consistently. I'm not sure why they're even buffing him, but...
All right, this hero is my number 4 on my top 3 of underpicked
even though he's played consistently.
He's still under
consistently.
I
think Netherward is... I hate doing... We do so many top lists, don't we? But Netherward is like top 10 non-ultimate skill for me. It's so good.
It's incredibly good. And now that the last 30 seconds instead of 25, it has a 5-second downtime instead of 10, which is obviously really relevant.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Okay, cool.
And the Decrep mana cost reduced. Again, this is another one of those cases where you're like, Pugna is one of those heroes where you always max Nether Blast, you always get the high level ward, and then Decrepify's like, it's a great ability, but meh, right? Sometimes you get 1 point, sometimes you max it. Some people even only get 1 point and then max stats because they don't want to decrepify the target for too long, so you can't do physical damage.
Right.
This is again one of those attempts to improve one of the underpicked abilities on
Well,
the
I would
hero.
think a cool thing for Decrepify is to have a sub ability to deactivate it
I think that
earlier
might be
if you
too
want
good
it.
though.
You think so? Okay.
Because again, that's some people were also like, why can't Blade Storm or sorry Blade Fury for Juggernaut have a deactivate button? Because the ability to choose that for yourself will be too good, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You make a choice and then you commit to that choice. So I think it's okay.
Well, but the thing with Blade Fury is the duration is the same at all levels as opposed to Decrepify.
Yeah, I guess, but
So then that's why you're being forced to leave it at level 1 as opposed to having the choice. But your
okay
point's
with
still.
that logic, yeah, I get what you mean. Okay.
Queen of Pain, Shadow Strike cooldown reduced, and the cast range has been increased. Now, I just want to point out, level 4 Shadow Strike, it has a 4-second cooldown. How is this balanced? I mean,
Because you
at
have
the
to be
end,
close to cast it on a very fragile hero.
I, it's such a good skill too. Although this hero's never played, so I don't know
And
why.
again, what is Queen of Pain's problem? People get 1 or 2 points in Shadow Strike for the
Yeah,
lane, and they don't skill it
I think they
afterwards.
level it up to the point where you can't bottle. Is that right?
I think you just generally get 2 points in it for the lane because it's a lane dominance build. This is what you get if you're playing against, for example, a melee hero. You can really zone them hard because it deals a lot of damage. It's a long duration slow. But
But wait,
then
at what
on
level? At what level can you not bottle up? Or is that
uh,
something else I'm thinking of?
you're thinking something else. This is on any level because it deals the way it deals damage should counter bottle on all levels. I think.
Okay,
Am I being silly here?
I'm not. I might be thinking of a different skill. I'm not.
I think you are. Rot, for example.
Yeah, Rod is definitely one. Yeah. Okay.
What was it? Queen of Pain. Let me find it here. But yeah, again, I think Shadow Strike cast range got nerfed a while ago, right? Because that was what made her crazy in lane, and now it's getting buffed again. So it's kind of trying to bring her back.
Yeah. Well, apparently that was enough to get her just never be played
Yeah,
again.
that's
So.
a big difference. Let's see. So the damage over time. Yeah, the way the damage over time works is that it ticks every 3 seconds on the Shadow Strike, and the damage is 30 on level 1, so that should remove bottle charges as well, so it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Cool.
I wasn't completely sure about the total, but yeah, this is okay. But yeah, maybe it's worth leveling it up now. That's the whole point of
Yeah.
this.
Well, I want to see her because she's fun to watch. She's a burst damage hero.
Oh,
Everybody loves
Razor.
burst damage. Yeah, Razor,
It's a
strength increased
big
by,
buff.
like, it doesn't maybe not look that much on paper, that's a lot. That
It's
is a
10 health
lot.
level.
And unstable current, I should say, slow duration has been increased a decent amount.
Yep.
And it's funny, because Razor is, I mean, he's kind of a counter carry. Some people look at him as a carry, but either way, you typically want to build him tanky. And right off the bat, you're already tankier just as is, so I think he'll be stronger.
This is fine. He fell off a little bit. It's actually one of the heroes I really enjoy playing. It's more of an anti-carry than it's a carry. And that's also because you steal the damage, so you don't need to build damage.
Yeah.
And yeah, now he's more tanky, so he's more able to do that. He kind of fell off, so I think that's a cool change. Okay, before I talk about this Ricky change,
Yes.
What's your main point about this? What's the most important thing about this change?
Denying, I guess?
That wasn't the first thing I thought.
What was
And
the
you know
first
why?
thing you thought? No.
It's because I'm stupid. Oh god, I hope they don't start drilling outside now. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Boy, please no. Then we're gonna. Oh my god.
It sounds like a dog growling
All
in
right,
your back.
We're fucked, man. This is not good.
No, we can continue. This is actually more entertaining now, I think.
Okay, so this is gonna be a thing. I can maybe if I change to my headset microphone, it doesn't pick it up. I don't. But anyway, I don't think they're. If it gets really bad, I'll switch.
Okay.
Anyway,
Well, okay.
so
what's the other thing to think about? With
so
this
I was
then?
thinking when you want to deny your ally when he gets low, it's very easy with the backstab to get the last hit on the deny. And then I was like, why the hell was I not thinking about creeps? Oh dear.
Oh, for denying creeps too. Okay. That's actually
it's for
really
creeps. That's the most important thing. But that wasn't the first thing I was thinking.
Right.
But that's definitely the main point because Ricky in lane now has a very easy time denying from his opponent. I think that's a great change. And again, intuitively makes sense. Why would he only be able to backstab opponents? Right?
Yeah,
So, good.
that's pretty cool. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't think it was that big of a change. Shadow Demon added Aghanim Scepter for him. Demonic Purge now. The cooldown's been replaced by 2 charges. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This means you have literally 2 abilities to use.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so it's insane.
Okay,
I think it's kind of an underwhelming ult for a lot of people, but yeah, go ahead and change if you want.
I'm gonna try to change to my headset mic, and then we'll see if it fixes it.
All right, well, this should be exciting.
Yeah.
So now you can't pick Lifestealer, and who else is?
All right, do you hear me?
Who else is demonic? Yes.
Okay, is this my laptop mic or my headset mic?
I think it's your headset.
Okay, good.
Who else is? Oh God, who else? See, Lifestealer's good against. Who else am I thinking of? It's good against the bear, I guess, kind of. Who am I thinking of, Syndrome?
Who's good against the bear?
No, the Demonic Purge is good against Lifestealer, and like it's picked against him. And who else? Some melee carry. Any melee carry, I guess. You can put in there. So if you pick 2 melee carries, you'll have the counter with Aghanim Shadow Demon.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Any BKB carrier, obviously. It's good to have Purge against.
Yeah.
It's good to have it against Omni Knight's Repel. What else do you really want to purge? I don't know. Sven, for example, he's a melee carrier who's really mobility based. It's great against him. Bristleback. There are many heroes that is good. Is it still picking this up, by the way?
Barely. It's fine. It just sounds like a dog that has like horrible diarrhea in the background. So next we have Shadow Fiend.
Accurate.
Requiem of Souls. Secondary debuff now affects magic immune units. I believe that is the, correct me if I'm wrong, the damage reduction?
Yes.
Okay. That's cool. So now you have a reason.
Secondary debuff. What's the primary? Damage? It deals damage and it reduces enemy damage, right? It doesn't do anything else. Oh, the slow. Wait a sec. That's also debuff, I guess it counts as. So let me see what the secondary. I guess it's the damage, yeah. So the slow doesn't go through. Yeah. I guess that would be the secondary one. Okay, so it makes him a better late game carry with that cast, because most carries in late game obviously BKB. And if they just get touched, this is the important point about Requiem of Souls, they just need to get touched by one of the souls, then they lose 50% of their damage. So this is really a big buff, I think, for late game. And a way of making that ability useful in late game, I guess. Maybe it was too weak in many cases, I don't know.
Alright, so Silencer, I can't remember the last time I've seen a buff this big for stats. And I know maybe Phantom Lancer was a huge one back in the day, I remember. I mean, sure, he's not an agility hero, but his agility is increased from 2.1 to 3. I think this is Ice Frog saying, play him as a carry, please. Curse of Silent, also the cooldown has been reduced, but really the agility growth is the bigger deal here. He wants them to right click.
They're both good if you're thinking of it as the carry role, because the 8-second cooldown on Curse of the Silent makes you a monster in lane. If you max this out first, you can just harass so heavily with this. It's a 6-second reduction in level 4. That's huge. And the most important thing about that is the way Curse of the Silent works. The way Curse of the Silent works is that you obviously force the enemy to cast a spell, and then if the cooldown on Curse of the Silent is as long as the cooldown of the enemy spell, he can just cast it again. But now that it's so low, you can trigger the spell cast with the first one, then you can get a full one through. So
that's pretty sick.
This is really, how many heroes in the game have a spell with a cooldown less than 8 seconds that are played in mid? Like, it's not really that many. So maxing Curse is really, this is also in the support role. This is, again, you know what? How does Silencer usually get played? You max Last Word and you max Glaives, and then maybe you get 1 point in Curse of the Silent or something. You don't often max Curse anymore. We buff Curse.
Yeah.
So again,
it's a cool hero.
More diversity. I love this hero. I think this is a cool change. And you could say Curse of the Silent was too weak before. I think this is going to make people realize how good this ability actually can be. And I mean, I'm guilty too. I'm playing games with Silencer support where I'm not even skilling Curse. Where sometimes you really should, other times it's like meh. Now I feel like there are really a lot of benefits to maxing this skill now. 8-second cooldown is legit.
Well, we'll see if that makes a difference. I mean, We haven't seen. I haven't seen. Well, I guess we've seen some silencer as support that turns into a carry just because they're doing so well, but no real silencers that start out as a carry. At least not lately. So we'll see. Skywrath Mage base movement speed has been increased again, 10, so pretty pretty substantial.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
concussive shot damage was increased as well.
But he's almost the fastest hero in the game now.
Let's see, 325, Luna
has
and
330.
Chaos Knight. Okay,
Chaos Knight is 325, right?
might be. I know that they're the top two, or they were.
I think Luna is the fastest with 330, and then Chaos Knight 325. Let me check. Yep, 325 on Chaos Knight.
So a support hero with the highest movement speed in the game, or second highest.
That's so legit. I think it's.
And he has a slow.
And the thing that makes this important for this hero to have move speed is that the way he hunts down targets with his what's that called again? The blast. I can't remember the name of that right now.
Which one?
The first ability he has.
Oh, God. His abilities. The names are awful. Bolt, Arcane Bolt.
Yeah, Arcane Bolt. You're right. Yes. So that's having more move speed allows you to keep chasing and using more and more of those. And Concussive Shot, which in my opinion was actually also too weak of an ability. I completely agree with this buff. This was exactly what it needed, and exactly like this ability needed to be buffed, and in this aspect. So really happy with this. I also like this hero. So
yeah, we don't see him enough for sure.
It's really cool.
Sniper, I don't know if it's because
just
it's
a
like
bug
6
fix.
a.m. Okay, it's a bug fix. Didn't understand anything. Okay, Spirit Breaker. Another straight cast range.
Actually, hang on. Let me just quickly explain what this means, because now I just read it thoroughly.
Okay. Now you read it. Congratulations.
There was there was a bug before with Sniper clicking attack, but then he was moving closer than his max attack range because the acquisition range was coded to being shorter than his max attack range. Which meant I think there was a difference between using attack ground or clicking on the target with how far you would move before you started hitting. Now it's always the same as his actual range, which is crucial because beforehand you would move closer than you had to hit things.
God forbid that you're, at 600 or whatever range instead of.
What does he have now? 800 million.
It's insane. It's just so much.
I think it's 950 or something now.
It's so dumb.
That's sick.
But I'm not going to get off on a tangent because this is getting on really long, but the way that Dendy's been playing Sniper, I think that's exactly what Valve wants. Like, very glass cannon, stay in the back. I mean, it's fun to watch, for sure. Spirit Breaker, Nether Strike cast range has been increased, and Nether Strike cooldown has been rebalanced to be a little bit lower at the later levels.
Yeah, that's good. It's still, that hero was too weak, and especially the ultimate, so perfect way of...
Do you think this makes any difference, though, in the grand?
It really makes a lot of difference for Spirit Breaker's early game in particular, where the cast range on Nether Strike is often a problem. If you get stunned, you can't catch up. Now, if you get stunned, you can still reach afterwards. That's kind of the biggest deal. He's not going competitive, though, I feel like. This hero, to me, got the biggest blow in terms of competitive play a hero has got for a long time when you needed vision to cast the ult.
Yeah.
Didn't
they put that back in, though?
Oh, God, no, I can't remember that. That's a problem, because...
They did something with him last patch, but it didn't make a difference, apparently, so...
This
is another fun hero to watch, so I wish he was played a little bit more. I mean, somebody that can gank from like global range is always fun to watch, so I'm rooting for Spirit Breaker to come back in the meta. But anyway, moving on.
Unfortunately, I can't remember that. I'm sorry. But
Sven, base damage increased by 6, which makes him the best carry in the game, obviously, so should be fun to watch. Fear, go at it once he gets back in full form. Templar Assassin, Psionic Trap sub-ability now has the same cast point as the ability. Alright, I'm too tired. Tell me what this means. Hello?
Wait a sec. Previously... Oh, yeah, okay. So, beforehand, when you throw a trap, you're, like, moving your hand on the hero. So, to use the cast point of the hero to throw down the trap. But you could activate the trap by clicking on the trap itself, right?
Right.
Now... that would make a difference between whether you cast it with your hero or whether you selected the trap and then exploded it. Now it doesn't matter which one you do, it's equally fast. So it doesn't use her cast point anymore, but just the traps one.
Okay.
So really, it's a convenience thing. It's not really a buff, I would say. It just makes the hero a little more intuitive and easy to play.
Terrorblade, strength gain reduced from a measly 1.9 to a god-awful 1.4. That
I
has
am
to be the lowest in the game.
so happy with this change. I hate this hero.
I think everybody does. Reflection has been changed a bit as well, as you guys can see, but the strength gain, huge deal.
I'm most happy
Actually,
about the third change. It's
yeah,
the
the
biggest
duration, I
one.
was going to say, rebalanced 2.5 at level 1. That's crazy.
Oh,
Difference
think
at least.
about what it was before.
Yeah, 5 at all
It was
levels.
5. It was the point with this was kind of the reverse story of what we had before, right? Where we were talking about all these abilities that weren't good enough. It was like this ability on level 1 was absurd how good it was. You didn't want to level it up because it wasn't worth it. You would often get stats over it. Now, if you want to have a good reflection, you have to skill it. And that means indirectly he gets nerfed in the sense that he has to skill it now. So it's worse on level 1. Surely it's a little bit better on level 4, but the more important thing is you can't really skip skilling it. Then it's too weak, so you can't get stats instead.
You know, it's funny. The way to beat this hero, because he's not going to have a whole lot of HP, at least in the early to mid game, is burst damage. Even if he gets a BKB, get a Laguna Blade with Aghanims. You'll kill him. I mean, 1.4 strength gain. That is, so awful.
Abysmal. I think it's the lowest in the game.
It has to be. I can't remember anybody that's lower than that for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Tide Hunter, I like this change a lot. Anchor Smash damage reduction increased, and it also works on Ancient Creeps, which makes sense because it's physical damage. So.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work on Roshan apparently, which I just read.
No, that would be a little too sick, reducing his damage by 60%, I guess.
Oh, I thought it meant the damage itself from Anchor
I guess
Smash.
both the damage and the effect.
Okay.
That's how it seems. That's how it should work. So this means Tidehunter offlane is going to be more popular, I think, because he has a lot more chance of stacking and farming ancients now.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised since the
definitely
changes
helps.
to the offlane were made that he didn't come back, to be honest, because he can survive, I think. But yeah, should be interesting.
Okay.
Tinker, Heat-Seeking Missile no longer blocked by Ethereal. Okay,
Cool.
that's fine. Don't know why that was ever the case. Craggy Exterior Stun from Tiny. The duration has been rescaled a bit. Great.
A lot better on level 3 and 4. Okay, especially level 4.
Nice.
Fine, makes sense.
Very annoying to go against a lot of the time. Troll Warlord, melee whirling axis cast point improved to 0 seconds. Yeah. Not that it was very big before, but...
I think that the reason this is important was that you would have to stop and cast it. So it's not just the cast point, but that your hero needed to stop first. Now you can continue your movement, I'm assuming.
It's similar to the way Sven's Warcry used to work, where you'd have to stop.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So if this works this way, then you can cast it while moving and nothing really changes. It's kind of...
It makes the range whirling axes like not needed as much. Because usually you'd set it up with the slow and then you go with the melee version.
I think this is a great change overall.
Okay, this one, I didn't look too deeply into it, but it seems like a big change. Tusk, I'll just read it. Reworked for people that can't read English but can understand it for some reason. Reworked Snowball in a two-part ability, one which creates the snowball itself, and a sub-ability to launch the snowball. You have up to 4 seconds to use the sub-ability. So the way I'm thinking about this is you gather people up into the snowball, and then it just sits there for up to 4 seconds, and you can launch it at any time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you put a snowball in place, and then you choose when to roll it.
Okay.
The area that automatically pulls in allies has been reduced, but then they can just choose to go into it, right? Or what? Yeah, you can load allies into your snowball by clicking them. So yeah, this is a lot more strategic as a skill that you really set up and decide you want to go together.
That's the problem I have with it. Of course, I need to see it in action, so I'm not going to go too deeply into this. But
this is really, really good, I think.
It's not like it's, hey, boom, let's go. It's like not like a quick thing. It's more organized and delayed, and I don't know. I could be wrong.
It still has the instant disjoint ability, for example, where you just cast it and then you immediately roll to get away, avoid projectiles. Wait. Okay, hang on. When he creates the snowball, is he automatically loaded into it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because then it's a 4-second phase shift for free. Right? Then he's invulnerable for 4 seconds and can choose what he wants to do. That's really, really sick. It has to be, right? When he uses snowball, he's always inside it.
That's a good point. So you're invulnerable when you're in the snowball.
You can disjoint really easily now because you don't even need to select a target. You just cast it, right? And then you choose the
I feel like I don't want to look too into this because I need to see it personally because the wording is really weird, you know?
I am actually imagining, based on what would make most sense and be most balanced, that when you cast the first part of the ability, you have to choose the direction.
Yeah.
So it's not a part of the second launch ability that chooses the direction, or is it? Oh, we can. I guess maybe we can read that with this. I'm not sure that's intuitive from the text.
Is this
No,
in
it's
the
not.
test client? I don't have the test client on this laptop, but
I don't know. But I'm saying
I need to
it
test
it
that
would
out.
have to be. I think if it's the first thing we talked about, where you just cast it and then afterwards you can choose where you go, it's absolutely insane. I feel like you need to choose direction first, and then you have time to load people on, and then you shoot. Whereas if you could just,
That
else it
seems
would
too
just be
slow
4-second
though. I don't
invulnerability.
know.
Where do I want to go now? Like,
Yeah. Well,
holy shit.
yeah.
I'm gonna say overall, really a big buff for me. But we're gonna see how it really
That
works.
could be. Undying
Okay.
soul rip area of effect increased by a lot.
Yep.
Zombies have been reworked a bit to give less gold, or actually no gold, now that I read it.
Yep.
And their, what is it, their max health threshold increased as well. And then the bounty for the tombstone, as a result, I guess to counteract this, is increased, but not by
Yep.
too much. And the Flesh Golem's Plague, or a lot of changes to him, it now affects I thought it always affected magic immune. Interesting. Okay. So now it does,
Damn, this
apparently.
is a big buff.
Yeah.
This is one of the heroes that individually got the most out of this patch. And I think in competitive play, I only see Fnatic picking this hero. Like, and it's because Fly likes it, I guess. I think if you backtrack the last 2 months, every Undying pick in the Western scene is Fnatic almost. But yeah, this hero needed some love, I guess, because he was underpicked. I think this is bringing him back. I'm gonna make a bold statement that he becomes a more, I won't say he becomes a top pick, but he becomes a regular pick now.
Okay.
This is really big.
Well, he's one of the few heroes that isn't picked, so
Yeah.
it'd be good to see. Ursa, Fury Swipe's no longer an attack modifier. When I read this, the first thing that came in my mind, and now that I think about it even more, it just seems like an amazing item for him, is Diffusal Blade.
I was thinking something else.
Really? You were thinking Deso?
I was thinking Maelstrom.
Ooh.
So that was my first intuition when I saw that. I was like, holy shit, you can build Maelstrom on a hero that has 500 attack speed. Or 400, right?
I think I feel like, okay, I understand that, but Diffusal gives you a slow on top of your overpower, and that's something that they always get away from him. That's his biggest issue, you know.
You still have your clap to deal with that. Like, it depends on the game. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, but just the fact that you can start getting these items now is crazy for this hero. It changes his really big weakness, was that he couldn't get an orb. And the other thing is the way you can build up your Vlads now, if you still want to get that even, is you can get the mask first.
Yeah, that's true.
In lane. So you don't you can actually sustain a lot more in lane, and you can go jungle really early with a Mask of Death if you want too. Really, really interesting. I think Ursa can, on level 3 or something with a Mask of Death, he can do ancient stacks, or like one
Do you
camp
think
at a time.
he goes different kind of lifesteal as a result of this?
He can go satanic, that then you're just full health.
That's true. I
Hit
mean,
5 times, like.
He's one of the only agility heroes that actually benefits a lot from extra health, so Satanic would be amazing.
I think this is huge for Ursa, and I love seeing this. This is one of my favorite carry heroes because he's very burst oriented and very, explosive in the nature of the hero. Much more than his sustained damage like other carries are. I think this is enough to get him back because now teams can start making different strategies with the hero and really utilize it. This is an indirect huge buff to his damage output because of the way he can build items. And I still think for me Maelstrom is overall the best choice that I can think of in most cases that's great on him, but there's certainly others like Diffusal, Desolator, Satanic, many things. This is awesome. I was worried this was too good, but now I just need to see it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Vengeful Spirit. This is the most random change in recent memory that I've seen. I think the last time I thought something was so random, even though I liked it, and I still like this one, was Necro's Aghanim's, where you can't buy back.
Yeah.
When Vengeful Spirit slain, her killer is inflicted with a negative vengeance aura, which decreases the damage of her killer and their nearby allies until she revives.
Yeah.
And the little question mark thingy says the damage reduction is based on Vengeful Spirit's vengeance aura, which makes sense, and has a 900 range, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So The only reason I can think of why anyone would ever get this idea is that she's vengeful. So she needs to have something that's to do with vengeance, right?
Well, I think it's more yeah, well, kind of, but at the same time, a lot of times people use her as a swap me out of danger and then die, sacrificial lamb. Now
Yeah.
there's an actual negative to
Yeah,
killing her in this situation.
it's really cool. It gives her. I think this hero is undervalued, not in my top 3, but still underpicked compared to how good it is. And this is gonna make her way more attractive because when it comes to mid-late game, this is one of the best supports. Now she's even better at that. Swap is one of the best ultimates in the game for late game because position is absolutely everything. It's about initiation, positioning, and staying alive. And of course, everything about this hero just builds for late game. She has a minus armor ability, she has an aura that gives damage to allies, and now when she dies, she has an aura that gives minus damage to enemies. So, really, really cool. And it fits her character, right? When she gets brought down, she gets her vengeance from the grave kind of thing. With that aura sticking with the enemy like a curse. So,
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
think
cool.
it's cool. I love this. I think it's awesome. It's one of the really creative things. Sometimes I'm like, how the hell do these people get these ideas? But
Yeah.
I like it.
Visage Grave Chill cooldown
Oh,
increased.
look.
Okay.
One of the abilities you would often only get 1 point in is
Yep.
now
I was
worse.
I was gonna say
Again.
it's
Again.
just this theme that you've been
Yep.
talking about over and over for sure. I don't think we need to go over it though.
No.
Warlock Shadow Word duration increased, and the upheaval cooldown has been reduced. So okay.
The first one is really important. The second one, I
The
still
second
think
one,
irrelevant for me, almost. Like
okay.
upheaval is one of those abilities you use once in a fight anyway. A 38-second cooldown instead of a 50, I don't think makes the biggest difference. Sometimes maybe it will allow you to cast it a second time in very extended fights, but to me it's still a one-shot ability. Now, Shadow Word is a really different story. Another 2 seconds, how much more damage / healing is that? Let me just check. Warlock. See the exact numbers on this. So Shadow Word, cast and incantation heals or damages over time. So on level 4, it's 45 damage or healing per second. For 11 seconds, that's 500 damage or healing. And in terms of laning potential, this makes a big difference in his potential to harass an opponent one-on-one, both as a support and as a core. This is not insignificant. And again, remember, this could bring him back because people realize, oh shit, this is a good hero, and now he's even better, and other supports are worse. And that's always the goal of balancing out the game, is to make...
Everybody worse
this
and your
nerf
favorite
to
hero
Visage
better.
does not remove Visage. This doesn't remove Visage from the game that Grave Chill is nerfed. And in terms of percentage, you could say that these two abilities kind of match up in how they get nerfed / buffed. But that means the Warlock one gets even better because others are worse, and this is really significant, I think. I think it's cool.
And this is something you were talking about with Wind Ranger, as we get to Wind Ranger now. Well, first, activating Wind Run now disjoints. Okay, I don't know why that was never the case. I always thought that was weird. But now they finally put that in.
Yep.
Aghanim Scepter, which is never picked up on her because it's almost pointless. The damage decrease...
Perhaps the worst carrier.
Yeah, the damage decrease is now 0 at level 3, and it no longer has any special rules for procs, which means with like Maelstrom or whatever. That seems very strong.
Yep, it does.
Is this enough for people to actually pick it up, though?
To me, anything that encourages people to get the ultimate in Wind Ranger and for her to get Ags is a plus for me, as long as it's not absurd. I think this hero is wonderful, but the ultimate has just always been that odd one out kind of in her skill set, where you're never really able to place when is it good, how should I use it, should I even get it? Now, if you play a core Wind Ranger, I think we're reaching the point where a Scepter is actually valuable. Where previously it was still like, there's better choices. I want my 4-step and my Axe, or sorry, my 4-step and Hex, and then I will be getting a Demon Edge into Chrysalis. Wow, I can't say anything. It'll get a Daedalus or maybe an MKB. Now I might get the Axe Scepter because it gives a lot of damage now indirectly with the ult, and the fact that now if you have any sort of proc with it, it's pretty sick. So
I think it encourages Wind Ranger as not a support or
yes, exactly.
not an off
For support Wind Ranger, this is completely irrelevant because in a support role, Ag Scepter will be your 4th choice or 5th anyway, and you're not getting it. So.
Witch Doctor, Maledict cooldown reduced by a lot, and the Death Ward base time, or the base attack time improved.
Yeah, so you were talking about a random number for Ogre Magi's thing. This is a random number.
Yeah.
Death Ward base attack time improved from 0.25 to 3.22.
Somebody wanted to buff their favorite hero, okay?
Yeah, it's the Maledict change is awesome because again, it's one of those where maybe you use it twice in a fight, maybe you use it for more of a harassment purpose now because you actually get it again fairly shortly after. And yeah, buffing Witch Doctor to me is still fine. He's getting better and better. I like this.
Yep.
Good hero.
Agreed, as you probably know from watching Captain's Draft, or casting with me, I should say.
Yeah, we like that
Wraith
hero.
King, mortal strike damage ratio increased, and base armor reduced. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but okay, it's good.
Yeah,
I feel like
better as a carry. For
Yeah.
support, it doesn't really matter. If you're playing him in a support role, you'll generally still max the 2 other spells first.
he's still kind of stuck in between carry support. I wish they would kind of strip. I guess it makes him more flexible at the end of the day, so it's okay.
It's cool.
I kinda
This
like
hero
it.
got a lot better and it has a much better design now. I think.
And last but not least for the heroes, Zeus. Arc Lightning cast point improved by 50%.
Yes.
The
good
fact
job.
that I have to think about that is so sad. And Lightning Bolt got 3 changes. The True Sight range has been reduced. The Flying Vision range was reduced. But at the same time, you can now cast on the ground, affecting the closest enemy in 250 range, which kind of makes up for that, I guess.
Yeah.
Explain this to me. What is the
So-
meaning behind this? For like Fog of War type of things?
Both for that, but also, yeah, mainly Fog, actually, it's a really good point. But also, Zeus's big weakness as a hero is he is really fragile and doesn't have mobility. And it's not something that they're going to change by giving him some sort of mobility suddenly or by making him more tanky or anything like that, but this gives him more choices as for positioning in fights. So the fact that he can ground cast now allows him to take different angles, cast from across cliffs, cast from across the river maybe, just more choices. Now, what I'm curious about is whether you can cast it on the ground if there's no valid target nearby and you just waste it, because
Right.
then it's kind of a big risk, right? If you're like, is he within 250 or is he in like 275? And then you cast it and then you miss. It's like, shit, I just wasted my lightning bolt.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm wondering if it just says invalid cast point, but I think you can actually cast it wherever. I think it's open.
Yeah, I
and
would
that
think it
also
would be
means
open.
that also means that even if there is no valid target, you can still get the vision, which is really interesting because now you can start dewarding with it. You can start scouting Roshan with it.
I think it has to be open because if you're trying to use it in Fog of War, you can just tell if they're there or not, just based on the
I
air coming
guess.
up. So it makes
Guess
more
so, yeah.
sense. But yeah, it's definitely a risk-reward situation.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like this choice. I think it's cool to improve this hero some more. Also a hero that we really haven't seen much, but which is a really old school beloved hero that just fell off, and he's been
Yes.
buffed quite a lot now. So
You
I
know, they
want this
need-
hero to come back for the love of
Well,
God.
They need him to. They need to redo his model for people to want to play him again. So, just saying.
Think about it. Winning TI4 with Mario isn't too bad, is it?
It's grandfather Mario. How dare you? All right, going on to the items. As I don't know if you could tell I'm about to fall asleep. It's so late here. It's insane.
This is a short list. We're almost through. You've done a good job.
Thank you so much, Cinder, and I really appreciate the kind words. Animal Courier, Ground Courier, respawn time reduced, which is good. I thought it was a little bit too long because it's so easy to kill him in the first
Less of a penalty
3
when it
minutes.
gets sniped.
Right.
I'm wondering why the value is 140 instead of 120, but whatever.
Well, either way. Baby steps, good sir. Bloodstone,
Yep.
the heal when you die, instead of 400, I guess it's just been increased overall.
Flat
So just
100 extra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Very
don't
nice.
know. That's
More suiciding, I suppose.
Clarity is the biggest item change, I think, in the patch.
Yeah, so mana regeneration 100 over 30 seconds has been changed to 135 over 40 seconds, so more mana overall, but of course it takes a little bit more time to
Yeah, but
get it
over
all.
the 30 seconds, you still get the same as before, or actually 1 more mana, roughly.
Okay.
So it's only better, and it lasts longer. And this is really important for some heroes that can, especially for junglers, that can use Clarity. This is where you will generally never get interrupted, or you're your own worst enemy, right? If you have summons to block for you or something like that,
Like an Enigma,
you can
yeah.
jungle a lot more effectively. So Enigma, Lycan are probably the first 2 that come to mind that use Clarity to jungle with. So makes Lycan better in the jungle again, but he is weaker in general with the ultimate nerf.
Do you think this becomes like too imba if you just, like, let's say it's the same amount of mana, but like 10 seconds?
That's too good. That's way
Or
too
like
good.
20 seconds.
So
Like
the thing is, if it's that short, then it becomes incredible for chasing, and that's not really the purpose of the item. It's supposed to be a slow regain so you can maintain your... It's a sustaining item. It's not an aggressive item, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good change. And when you compare how good Salve and Tango are to how good Clarity is compared to the cost, I think when you think about it, it needed a buff. So, good choice to do this. Like
okay,
it.
Yule's Scepter now deals 50 damage when the target lands. Very random. Don't think that's. I mean, is
You
there
fall
any?
from the sky. I mean,
No, I feel like there's something more in depth
yeah,
about this that I'm missing.
there is. You
What is
cannot
it?
blink out of Yule's.
Ooh, that's right. That's okay. That's big change then. That is a big
That is
change.
absolutely huge because this is the problem with Yules that you always have when you're chasing enemy carries is that you're like, not only can you mess it up for your team who have AoE stuns or something, or that they're casting, or you can stop channeling abilities that they were using on the target, but you could maybe even also make him escape because when he lands, he can blink. It's not an option anymore. And I am just so happy this item is getting buffed because I feel like it's such a cool item, but it's just always needed a little more and a little more and a little more. We're getting there.
Yeah. You can
Intelligent.
also cast it on yourself if you're magic immune. I like this a lot because I think back in the day it wouldn't have been feasible because BKB, if you remember, used to be so much better. It would be 10
Yeah.
seconds and it would never change. But now that it goes down to 4 seconds, I think this is perfectly fine. Like, you shouldn't have any negatives of using your BKB because it's a perfectly balanced item in my opinion. So it's a good change.
Yeah.
Manta Style. Mirror Image now resets the current attack and
Finally.
spell target. This was a thing I saw on Reddit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This
why don't you explain this
was
for people that don't understand?
Yeah, so there was a disparity between Dota 1 and Dota 2 with how Manta Style works. So in Dota 1, when you cast Manta Style, if the enemy is already, let's say I am Lion, and I am running towards your Terrorblade, and I'm clicking Hex on your hero, and then you're like, oh shit, Lion's coming, I'm gonna Manta Style, then the Hex will still remember which one is the real one. So I will always hit the real one with my Hex. After you Manta, I would automatically Hex that one. So in Dota 1, the way it worked was that when you used Manta Style, it reset the cast priority, so it didn't know which one was real. And that's such a big part about Manta Style, is being able to pull jukes and mind games on opponents, which you weren't able to do until now in Dota 2, since...
Why did nobody ever complain about this until, like, recently?
I think it's been complained about in the past, but it just didn't get the same amount of attention.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely possible.
And it says it also affects other image shuffle-based spells like Chaos Knight's Phantasm and Naga Siren's Mirror Image. So with Mirror Image 2 on Naga, if you were clicking Hex and she uses Mirror Image, then you would Hex the real one. It's like imbalanced like hell when you think about it, because it's supposed to be a confusing ability.
Yeah.
So this is a huge buff for Manta, because there's so damn many games where this is relevant. It's not every game, but it's more than 50%, I think. So, really nice.
Looking towards Mjolnir, which is, in my opinion, one of the best items in the game now, or from before. And now that's been changed, we'll get your opinions on it. The damage has been reduced just slightly. The static shock area of the effect is now centered around the unit with a static charge rather than the attacker. I didn't even realize that was the case before.
That's why I was like, holy shit, I'm hitting targets 1,000 range away with my lightning.
Right, so that's a little bit more balanced. It's still way better than it was before, though, I think, and it fixed some stuff past that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not completely sure what this third one means. It says it makes them more reliable when they proc in sequence. I'm not sure. But yeah, this nerf, I think, is
it was needed.
Justifiable. Yeah, it's good.
But again, like I was saying, the previous version of Mjolnir was garbage compared to this still. So just be happy Mjolnir is amazing still.
Yeah.
Necronomicon, and this is one of the, I think, one of the top few items. I was going to say Blink Dagger and Necronomicon. I don't think Blink Dagger was complained about, but probably the strongest, some of the strongest items in the game. And they were looking for big nerfs. I don't know if I'd call this a big nerf, but the warrior movement speed has been rescaled quite a bit. It's like, I mean, it almost has level, it's not even a level 2 movement speed, so it's been reduced a decent amount, and the XP bounty has been increased a lot.
It's huge. So the reason this is important is that the way Necronomicon Warrior usually works in the fights is that you use your Necro Book and you click a target. And even if they're a decently fast hero, the warrior is still faster than them. So they keep running after them and mana draining them, and you can't fight the warrior because when you kill it, you die, right? Now, with 350 movement speed, how much movement speed is the aura? Is that 9%? I think. So that's 350 times 1.5. What? Sorry? Oh, yeah, okay.
579%, I think. I might be making that up.
Pretty sure it's 9% as well on level 3. So let's think of 9%. Then I just did the math. Level 3 Necronomicon Warrior has 381.5 movement speed. And that means if you have tier 2 boots, you can almost outrun it. And if you have boots of travel, you outrun it. And that's a pretty big deal. And of course, the experience bounty it's worth way more to kill the Necronomicon units now
Well, it's more
to get
it's more
experience.
for the Necro holders, not to just waste the units. I think more than
Yeah,
anything.
that too.
They
And
won't just
what was
suicide
that
them.
previous number? 59
Yeah,
experience.
I don't.
One of these
Somebody's
old
favorite number.
leftovers that are so random from Dota 1.
Observer and Sentry wards sharing with allies now requires a control key to override. Okay, wards can no longer be placed in the fountain areas, which
Fountain farming
yeah,
and courier
why not
killing.
just change? Like, why not just make the fountain deeper? I don't know. Fountain farming is kind of an issue. I mean, like I don't have problems with it myself because I'm the one fountain farming. But no, it's more so on a serious note. It kind of demoralizes like newer players. I feel like so. I feel like
Maybe.
something needs to be changed with that for pubs.
Perhaps.
Pipe of Insight. The regeneration has been reduced, but um, actually, can you explain this to me? So the Insight Aura, which grants 4 HP regeneration to allies, was that not the case before?
No. Pipe didn't have any regen for allies at all. Mech has the passive from the headdress.
I'm dumb. I'm thinking of mech.
So this is a really big buff because not only does you get one more regen for yourself because it went from 11 to 8 plus 4, so now you have 12, and all your allies have 4. This is encouraging people to build more pipes, and it's making pushing lineups better.
And in
this
combination
item is
with
really
a mech,
good.
that's a lot of regen on the side.
It's really not irrelevant. You shouldn't underestimate how much that means.
And no longer dispellable on top of all that, so
yeah,
beautiful.
Exactly.
Rod of Ethos, cripple ability cooldown reduced by 2. Okay, good to see you.
Again.
Scythe of Vice, as we talked about, I'm sure you want to talk about this a bit. Hex unit's base movement speed has been increased from 100, which is the normal for all hexes in the game, if I'm not mistaken. But
it's
now
the slowest move speed a hero can get in the game.
But now it's 140 for only Scythe of Vice.
Yeah. So Lions and Shadow Shamans' hexes are better than Scythe of Vice in terms of how much they slow the target, in addition to the lower cooldown that they have. And I think just nerfing Scythe a bit overall is okay. This item has been such a stable and crazy part of the game, which you will always get in late game. And it still performs its function, but now you get a little bit of a chance to move a little further away. You know, like you said, baby steps. It's not huge, but it's definitely not irrelevant either. And again, an intelligent way of nerfing the item that doesn't touch the stats and doesn't touch what's powerful about it, namely that you get controlled, but you move a little faster. So, and like I said before, this makes Shadow Shamans and Lions hexes better relative to Scythe of Vice now, even better. So it's cool.
Can you explain this? So Shadow Amulet, fade no longer requires the target to remain stationary. So the fade, how long is the fade?
The fade
like
is, I think,
2 seconds or something?
1.6.
So you click it, and then for 1.6 seconds you can still walk, but then you have to stop in order to go invis.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
That's
you can
pretty
click
good
it.
Then. Okay.
You can click it. Remember, you can use this on allies too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that
So
change.
you can actually save an ally with this now in a way that they can move a bit first before they go invis and yourself.
Huh.
So cool.
Okay.
I feel like every buff to
completely
Shadow
useless.
Amulet, because this item has just been like...
It started out as the worst item in the game, I feel like.
Yeah,
It's
still not that good, but slowly getting better. That's good.
Yeah. Shadow Walk from Shadow Blade has been increased after the huge nerfs to it previously, so we've seen it drop off
That was the nerf to the
considerably.
cooldown. From 20, went from 18-second cooldown to 28. I guess this is just to have the duration be half of the cooldown.
I'm
and
fine
of
with
course,
this.
a little bit longer to... This is mainly important when you want to set up ganks where you're crossing the map, that you have a little more, you can cover a little more ground before you have to make your move. And it allows you to start in different areas and end a little further with your ganks. Mainly important for a hero like Slark, I think, who gets even more out of it because of his ultimate. But yeah, overall, I think this is an okay change and not too huge.
Okay, and last but not least, the TP scroll. You can now bind something to, or not bind it, but you can add an option to require a halt command in order to cancel it. That's just to help you fail less, pretty much, so no big deal. But it's a nice change to make it easier for people. So overall, I like this patch. I'm glad they didn't change. I wouldn't say there's many drastic changes, which is good because I think the game's in a good place right now. The one item that I was expecting to get nerfed, and I'm kind of happy it didn't, was the Blink Dagger. I think the change to Blink Dagger has opened up, like, I think people are underrating, even though they're talking about it, they're still underrating the effect it's had. It's been huge. I wouldn't have minded too much if they'd increased the price or something like that, but the idea of having a Blink Dagger with no mana cost is huge for initiation heroes, huge for strength heroes in general. And I'm happy to see it. And I've seen some comparisons to having the flash ability in League of Legends. I don't want to get into this too much. I don't think the comparison is fair because you don't start with a blink dagger. You have to farm it.
Yeah.
And of course, it's used more offensively than defensively just because of you can't blink when you're getting hit by a hero. So I think that is the biggest change from 6.8 that has just made everything, all the competitive games, so much more enjoyable for me personally.
Yeah.
What do you think of this patch?
I'm happy it didn't get changed either. I'm happy with it. I feel like the heroes that needed nerfs got them. The heroes that could use some buffs got them. And what I'm really happy about with the patches we've been seeing lately is the creativity that goes into the ability changes. I think it's really cool that the heroes keep their identities and that they get something new and special. Some of them, like the Vengeance Aura, for example, that we talked about, and that the beta testers or whoever is contributing to developing the games and the heroes are thinking outside the box, which I think is great because it avoids the hero development from stalling. And at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do where you're like, okay, you could have some really awesome ideas, but you can't realize them because they're completely imbalanced or completely garbage. But sometimes you just get that good idea like that one, and then it's actually really cool and adds something to the character. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. I think the Ags upgrades are cool. I'm curious to see how they will work out.
Can't wait for everyone to get an Ags upgrade.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Tidehunter's Ravage goes through BKB, 6.82.
Might be too good.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's it for me. I'm really happy with the patch. I have a hard time saying overall whether some sort of role got buffed more than the others. I feel like this was more about general gameplay and individual heroes more than we saw a couple of versions ago that the supports really got improved a lot with gold gain that favored them more and the reduced cost of wards. But it seems like the way the economy works inside the game right now seems to be pretty set in stone with, or at least for now, it's not getting changed with the distribution of gold between the roles. And I completely agree with the way that is right now. So a really good patch. Like you said, nothing extreme, but a lot of smart and cool changes that I would love to see in CM as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think I speak for you when I say this has been, since 6.8, it's been the most enjoyable Dota to watch ever. So
yeah,
excited for the future.
I was starting to get a little bit bored with drafting lately with the, like you said, Neil's bad heroes getting
Is that not the best acronym of all time?
Awesome. I'm never gonna. That's amazing. We really need to remember that. So pretty much, like you said, all of those heroes that were getting a little too much love, perhaps, or not too much, because they were that good, all got nerfed in a way that makes sense. So they're still the same heroes, but just in a more balanced way. And what I'm hoping most of all for that is that I felt like 2 months ago, what was awesome about the drafting was that there was no approach you had to take to the draft, pretty much, where teams were really doing different things, and there was no like.
It wasn't as predictable, yeah.
There wasn't that top tier where you were just like, oh shit, Lycan is always amazing, Invoker is always amazing, Naga, Ember Spirit, where people weren't in that position where it was like teams weren't sure, they were trying things out, there wasn't like that clear cut, and then what usually happens with the patch towards the end is that people figure out this just works and this is just better than the other things. And then I feel like with this patch, that's changed. So that's really, really great that that's been moved. It's been shifted. Right. So I'm hoping that drafting is just more open again. Especially the first phase, I would like to be a little more open, which
especially
I think it will
with the qualifiers coming up, which we've been hearing about, Syndrin. Excited to see what's happening there. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to go to bed. I truly apologize for the mic quality. It just goes to show you that Valve does not want me to ever take a day off as long as I live, so I will never make that mistake again. Thanks, Syndrin, for joining me.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you guys next time.